Chapter 46. When they returned to the Lee residence, Madame Lee was in the front hall when she heard the commotion at the door. Xian, where did you go? Whose child is this? How'd he get hurt so badly? Madame Lee asked in shock when she saw her son calling Sanbao and Ah Fu to carry a little boy wrapped up like a dumpling. Mother, this is Han Village's Han Lijing's son, Iron Egg. This is Han Lijing's daughter, Han Yushi. Today's matter is a long story. Let me help Iron Egg settle down first. Li Zixuan told the servants to be careful not to hurt him as he answered his mother's question. At this moment, Han Yushi hurriedly walked forward and bowed. Yushi greets Madam. Us siblings have disturbed you today. Iron Egg, who was being carried, forced himself to stand up and said to Madame Lee. Iron Egg pays his respects to Madam. Madame Lee hurriedly pressed the child down and said there was no need to be so polite. She then turned to look at Han Yushi. Seeing her beautiful appearance and pitiful appearance, she was truly a peerless beauty. She was stunned and secretly wondered if her son had taken a fancy to this girl. She walked forward to help Han Yushi up and said, Miss Han, there's no need to be so polite. Our Lee family usually collects rent from the Han village. Your father has also given us a lot of convenience. She then turned to Li Zixuan and said, Xian, let Sanbao and the others place Iron Egg in Mingwei. The siblings will stay there tonight. Mother will send a few servant girls over to take care of them. Mingwei was a small, independent courtyard in the West Courtyard that Li Zixuan lived in. It was used by the Li family to entertain guests. Li Zixuan naturally agreed. Han Yushi hurriedly declined. Madam, we don't need servant girls to serve us. I can take good care of little brother. Madame Lee smiled and said, You little girl, there's no need to be so polite in our house. Previously, Xianer was taken care of by her father in the Han village. She had just noticed that there was a trace of adoration in her son's eyes when he looked at Han Yushi. As an experienced person, Madame Lee naturally understood everything. She thought to herself that although this girl's family background was a bit poor, her appearance could indeed be considered stunning. No wonder her son was infatuated with her. Her son was finally enlightened. It seemed that she would soon be able to hold her grandson. Mrs. Lee's imagination was running wild, and she began to fantasize happily. Li Zixuan politely directed the servants to carry his future brother-in-law. With such a good opportunity to perform, of course, he had to perform well in order to get closer to Han Yushi. However, he was completely unaware that his thoughts had been completely seen through by his quick-witted mother. After some work, Li Zixuan, Lan and Han Yushi followed the servants to Mingwei. Madame Lee naturally went to instruct the kitchen to prepare dinner. After placing Iron Egg on the bed, the servants took their leave. Li Zixuan turned around and said to Han Yushi, Yushi, Iron Egg's injuries can't withstand any bumps. The mountain road to the Han village is also rugged. You should accompany Iron Egg and stay at my house for a few days. When Iron Egg's injuries are more or less healed, we'll talk about it again. I'll send someone to the Han village to inform your father in a while. After saying that, he looked at Han Yushi and prayed that she would quickly agree. Spring was coming, and this fellow was now a little moved by love. Although Han Yushi felt that it was inappropriate to stay here, everything the young master said was reasonable. Iron Egg's injuries were indeed unable to leave. She could only nod and say, Then I'll have to trouble you, young master. After saying that, a trace of joy and anticipation appeared in her heart for some reason. Children all loved excitement. Lan heard that and cheered. That's great, that's great. Now, there's finally someone to play with, Lan. Li Zixuan pointed at Lan unhappily and said, Big brother, haven't I been playing with you all this time? You ungrateful little girl. Lan naughtily stuck out her tongue at her brother. She tugged at Han Yushi's arm and giggled. She didn't say anything else. Xiaoyi walked in and bowed. Young master, the food is ready. Madame wants you to go to the front hall to eat. Old master is also back. Li Zixuan nodded and said to Han Yushi, Yushi, follow me to the front hall to eat. I'll ask Xiaoyi to send some food over for Iron Egg to eat later. Han Yushi hesitated for a moment and nodded. Lan mischievously said, Brother Iron Egg, you have to be good. Lan, We'll ask Sister Xiao he to send you some chicken to eat later. Iron Egg didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Come, you should eat this base. It's good for your body. At the dining table, Madame Li was beaming with joy as she frequently picked up food for Han Yushi. Han Yushi's small bowl soon piled up into a small mountain. Han Yushi was helpless. If she refused, she was afraid that it would be too rude. Moreover, she kept feeling that Madame Li was looking at her strangely. She was a little flustered and could only hurriedly thank her and bury her head in eating. Li Zixuan also noticed his mother's strange gaze. He thought to himself, could it be that his mother saw that he was interested in Han Yushi? That shouldn't be. Li Zixuan felt that he hid it very well. I heard from your mother that Han Tianhu's son was injured today? Li Jingma asked. Yes, father. Iron Egg's injury is very serious. I want him to recuperate in our house for a few days. I'll send him back when his injury is better, Li Zixuan answered. Li Jingma nodded. Yes, that's how it should be. Your father and I have some friendship before. Since his son is recuperating in our house, we have to take good care of him. But speaking of which, why was Iron Egg injured? There are actually people who dare to commit murder and injure people at the foot of the emperor. Isn't this disregarding the national law? When Li Zixuan heard this, he felt that the latter half of his father's words were very familiar. After thinking for a moment, it turned out that County Magistrate Chao had just told him this afternoon. He couldn't help but find it funny. He told his father about how they went to Shi City in the afternoon and met Yushi and the others who were bullied. Bang! When Father Li heard about Xiaoyun's evil deeds, he immediately slammed the table angrily. This is really preposterous. He actually snatched a commoner's daughter in broad daylight and maliciously injured her. I've heard of this Xiaoyun before. He used his father's official position to snatch commoner's daughter and committed all kinds of evil deeds. He's really guilty. Madame Li also said angrily, this kind of evil person really deserves to be killed. What happened after that? Li Zixuan said. Later, Gao Ming called the capital magistrate and ordered him to handle the case impartially and not to play favoritism. Their Chao family will definitely be finished this time. Madame Li let out a sigh of relief. She held Han Yushi's hand and gave her a comforting look. Li Jingmo reacted quickly and asked doubtfully, who is this Li Gaoming? Why is he able to call the capital magistrate? Li Zixuan didn't plan to hide this matter from his parents. In any case, they would find out sooner or later. He said, Father, this Li Gaoming is the current crown prince, Li Changxian. A single sentence stirred up 1,000 waves. This was simply earth-shattering. Other than Li Zixuan and Lan everyone else in the room was dumbfounded. They were just ordinary people. The crown prince was too far away from them. They never thought that Li Zixuan would be related to the crown prince. Li Jingma's psychological quality was better. After all, he had been in the business world for decades. He was the first to come back to his senses. He muttered, why is the crown prince with you? Li Zixuan really wanted to tell his father that his words were ambiguous. He wasn't gay. However, now was obviously not the time to joke. Thus, he told his parents about him and Li Changxian opening strange interest pavilion. When Father Li heard that his son dared to take 70% of the shares, he was so shocked that his mouth fell open. He secretly thought that his son was really a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of tiger. How bold! Li Jingma planned to talk to his son alone after dinner. He wanted to remind him to pay attention to the etiquette between a ruler and his minister. He didn't want to be too rude and offend the crown prince. When Madame Li heard that her son was opening a shop with the crown prince, she immediately felt that her son was promising. She was very happy. Just like that, the family finished dinner with their own thoughts. Li Jingma stood up and said, come with me to the study. I have something to tell you. After saying that, he directly walked to the study with his hands behind his back. Li Zixuan hurriedly stood up and followed. He also had something to tell his father. Chapter 47. Li Zixuan entered the study and closed the door behind him. He found that his father was already sitting on a stool, holding a cup of tea and waiting for him. Li Zixuan sat on the other side without hesitation and poured himself a cup of tea. Drinking tea after a meal was good for digestion. Seeing his son's carefree attitude, Father Li couldn't help but get angry. Xian, how did you meet the Crown Prince? Looks like Father is still worried about the Crown Prince. His mentality isn't stable. Li Zishuan put down his teacup and told his father about how he met the Crown Prince on the way to Shi City and how the Drunken Immortal restaurant had invited the Crown Prince and Cheng Chumo to eat together. Father Li stroked his beard and digested the information. Xian, you have to follow the rules in front of the Crown Prince. Pay attention to the etiquette between a ruler and a minister. You can't be as undisciplined and reckless as you are at home. As the saying goes, accompanying a ruler is like accompanying a tiger. If you anger the Crown Prince, even I won't be able to save you. Thinking of that brat Li Zishuan, if he had to bow and scrape before him, he wouldn't have been able to do it. However, Father Li's words were for his own good. Li Zishuan couldn't be bothered to explain and could only reply vaguely. Father, don't worry. The Crown Prince and I are friends. He won't use his status to pressure me. Father Li glared at him. Even so, you can't overstep the etiquette between a ruler and a minister. What if the Crown Prince decides to settle the score one day? Yes. Father's right. I'll listen to you. In order to avoid being lectured by his father, Li Zishuan quickly nodded in agreement. Seeing his son's behavior, Father Li knew that he didn't listen. He snorted angrily and didn't bother to persuade him anymore. Why did you only give the Crown Prince 30% of the shares of your strange interest pavilion? Why don't you give him 30% tomorrow? Our family doesn't lack money. There's no need to offend the Crown Prince over such a small matter. Li Zishuan immediately stomped his feet and said anxiously, No, this won't do. That won't do. The Crown Prince himself has already agreed to this condition. Father, what are you doing here? Aren't you just as anxious as the Emperor? You little bastard. How dare you talk to your father like that? Is your skin itching again? Father Li was so angry that his beard blew and his eyes widened. Flustered and exasperated, he was about to get up and hit him. Li Zishuan immediately got up and dodged. As he dodged, he shouted, Mother, help! My father is going to put righteousness before family. Old man Li was even more furious. He was so angry that he stomped his feet. At this moment, a cough came from outside the study. Cough, cough. Li Zishuan could tell that it was his mother's voice. Sure enough, her mother pushed the door open and entered. After Mrs. Li came in, she coldly glanced at Old Man Li, then directly sat down beside him and said to Old Man Li, I think you want to sleep in the study again? What couldn't he say to little Xian properly? Little Xian is already so old, yet you still hit and scold him. What a scandal! Old Man Li instantly lost his temper. He sat back down like a wronged wife and sipped his tea in grievance. Li Zishuan saw that the atmosphere was a little stiff. He laughed dryly and went forward to reason with his father. Father, that strange interest pavilion is your son's first business. In the future, its scale will definitely surpass the Tang Empire. Your son has already given the Crown Prince 30% of the shares. Why can't you see the Crown Prince clearly? Old Man Li obviously felt that his son was bragging. He laughed coldly, indicating that he didn't believe him. Li Zishuan said helplessly, Father, if you don't believe me, then let's wait and see. Also, your son has something to tell you today. Old Man Li swallowed his tea and said unhappily, What can you possibly want? It seems that his father's heart is full of resentment. Li Zishuan said awkwardly, Father, other than the abilities I told you before, my master is also proficient in divination. Did you know? Old Man Li stared and said, How would I know? Besides, why are you telling me this? Li Zishuan patiently said, Father, when your son was 7 years old, I accidentally heard my master say that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda. Li Zishuan obviously didn't know the exact date. He heard it from Xiao He when he returned home. The Xuanwu Gate would be filled with corpses and blood. At that time, your son didn't know what it meant. After my master passed away and I went down the mountain, I found out what happened on the 9th year of Wuda. Li Zishuan's parents turned pale with fright. They had been living in Chang, and naturally knew what happened on the 4th day of the 6th month last year. The location of the incident happened to be the Xuanwu Gate. This incident had now become a taboo among the people of the Tang Empire. No one dared to mention it in public. Mrs. Li stood up and said anxiously, "Xian'er, is this true?" Li Zishuan nodded solemnly and said, "Your son doesn't dare to lie to you." Although Old Man Li was shocked, he still had some doubts and asked, "So what if your master has the ability to predict the future? What's the point of telling us this?" Li Zishuan stood up and said slowly with his hands behind his back, "After I went down the mountain and found out that my master's prophecy came true, I was even more worried because my master left another prophecy before he died." Old Man Li was also a little nervous at this moment and asked hurriedly, "What prophecy?" Li Zishuan gathered his emotions for a moment and said in a low voice, "My master said that on the 6th day of the 2nd year of Jingguan, there will be a large-scale and unprecedented locust plague in the Tang Empire. At that time, the locusts will cover the sky and the earth and pour down in torrents, sweeping across the entire Guanzhong plain. Wherever the locusts pass, the land will be barren and all the crops will be destroyed by the locusts. The Tang Empire will suffer a world-destroying catastrophe. At that time, thousands of people will starve to death because of the lack of food. It's not surprising that the locusts will eat their children." The two elders were stunned by this shocking prophecy and were speechless for a long time. Mrs. Li had always been kind-hearted and couldn't bear to see others suffer. At this moment, the miserable scene described by Li Zishuan touched her delicate heart, and her eyes turned red. Mrs. Li gently wiped the corner of her eyes and asked sorrowfully, "Xian'er, did your master say that there is a way to resolve this locust plague?" She still had a glimmer of hope in her heart. Li Zishuan slowly shook his head and said, "My master said that in the 9th year of Wuda, even if the Turks attacked the vicinity of Chong, and it wouldn't be terrible, the Tang Empire will have a wise ruler to resolve this disaster. But this locust plague in the 2nd year of Jingguan is the biggest test for the Tang Empire that has just been pacified. No one can resolve it. We can only rely on ourselves to fight against the heavens." At this moment, Old Man Li's face was also a little sad. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Alas, we are just mortals. How can we fight against the heavens?" Mrs. Li also nodded her head with a miserable expression. The ancients had always maintained a reverent heart for the heavens. In their view, the locust plague was a punishment from the heavens to the human world. How could mortals resist it? In the end, humans couldn't fight against the heavens. Li Zishuan saw that his parents had accepted their fate and had no fighting spirit. He couldn't help but shake his head. It seemed that his task tonight was a little heavy. He had to pull his parents together. He couldn't complete this plan alone. Chapter 48. The atmosphere in the study was extremely stifling. Li Zongyuan's parents had already believed in their son's prophecy, but even if they knew about it in advance, what could they do? At most, they could stock up a batch of food in advance to ensure that their family members wouldn't starve to death. But there would still be tens of thousands of people starving to death because of the lack of food. Although Li Zongyuan's parents weren't exactly good people, they knew that many people would starve to death in the future, but they couldn't do anything about it. Their hearts were filled with grief. Li Zishuan had been worried that if his father knew about the locust plague, he would try to stock up on food in advance so that he could raise the price of food and make a fortune from the disaster. But looking at his father's sorrowful face, Li Zishuan knew that he was overthinking things. He secretly chided himself for being a petty person. However, knowing that his father wasn't a petty merchant, Li Zishuan felt gratified in his heart. He walked in front of his father and firmly said, "Don't worry. Father, if we don't try, how can we know that we can't fight against the heavens? Master once said that the world thinks that men can't fight against the heavens, but they don't know that it's just an excuse that the weak find for themselves. As long as we try our best, then men can defeat the heavens." When Li Jingma heard his son's words, he felt his blood boil. He raised his head and asked his son. He raised his head and asked, "Xian, have you thought of a good idea?" Li Zishuan sat back down on the stool, took a sip of tea, and nodded. "Ever since I returned from Mount Longhu, I've been thinking of a solution. In those days, when I thought about how the great Tang would starve for thousands of miles a year, I was so worried that I couldn't eat or sleep. Cough, cough. Don't talk nonsense. Get to the point. Li Jingma hurriedly interrupted. He cursed in his heart. You still have the face to say that you can't eat or sleep. You eat in different ways every day, and you even made a chicken to eat. And you don't even wake up until late in the morning. Madame Li was also amused by her son's shameless words. She realized that her son's skin was getting thicker and thicker. But this was also good. A thick-skinned person wouldn't suffer losses easily. In Madame Li's eyes, her son was good. Seeing that his parents' expressions were not as dejected as before, Li Zishuan knew that his goal had been achieved. So he stopped fooling around and seriously said, "Today, I thought of a method that can eliminate the locusts to a large extent. At the very least, it can ensure that the grain in our family's farmstead will not be harmed." Li Zishuan saw a rooster snatch away a grasshopper brought by Iron Egg today, so he came up with a plan. In this era, without chemical pesticides, Li Zishuan could only think of using biological control to deal with locusts. The overwhelming number of locusts was obviously not something that could be caught by hand. They could only breed animals that could hunt locusts. The power of biological control was not to be underestimated. Li Zishuan read a technical post in his previous life. According to statistics, a black-spotted frog could hunt more than 135 locusts, the larvae of locusts, per day. A swamp frog could hunt more than 120 locusts per day. A toad could hunt more than 160 locusts per day, and an adult bird could eat 167 adult locusts per day. Imagine if tens of millions of white birds could be brought in now. When a locusts outbreak next year, just these tens of millions of white birds could eat all the locusts in the Tang Empire overnight. However, because birds and frogs were not easy to breed on a large scale, Li Zishuan wanted to set up a large-scale chicken farm. He wanted to use all the resources of the Han family manor to breed as many as they could. Li Jingma had traveled extensively for so many years, but he had never heard of a method to deal with the locusts. Hearing this, he asked curiously, "Xian, what method have you thought of?" Li Zishuan did not answer. Instead, he asked, "Father, if there is a method to deal with locusts that can guarantee that the Han family manor will not suffer any losses when the locusts come, but it will require our family to fork out a large amount of money. Father, are you willing to do it?" Li Jingma glared at him and said angrily, "You brat, what kind of person do you think your father is? Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. If there is a way, how can your father to not help?" Madame Li also agreed, "Xianer, if you have a method, just say it. Your father and I will support you fully. If the money is gone, your father can still earn more. However, to see so many people starve to death, I'm afraid I won't be able to rest in peace for the rest of my life." Li Zishuan was also touched by his mother's sincere kindness. He nodded and continued, "Father, your method is simple. Father, your son's method is very simple. Our family will be responsible for providing the Han family village with chicken seedlings. Let all the villagers help us raise chickens. Based on the number of chickens raised by each villager, we will reduce their rent by 10% to 30%. When the locusts come next year and the chickens have grown up, we can have the farmers herd the chickens into the fields and let the chickens eat all the locusts. This way, not only will the crops be protected, the chickens will also grow faster. When the locusts are over, we can sell the chickens or supply them directly to the Drunken Immortal restaurant. In this way, we won't lose money and can even help the farmers." Li Jingma listened to his son's plan while thinking in his heart. When his son finished, he realized that his son's plan was logical and logical. He had considered all the problems and couldn't help but feel gratified. However, he still had a question in his heart. He asked, "Shinner, your idea is quite thorough. It may not be impossible. However, with just these chickens, can we really eat all the locusts in the Han family manor?" Li Zishuan smiled confidently. "Father, don't underestimate the chickens. Father, don't underestimate the ability of chickens. I once read a book that said that an adult chicken can eat up to 300 locusts a day. By then, I estimate that 20 chickens can almost guarantee that there will be no locusts in 1 mu of land. As long as the plan goes smoothly, we can fight against the heavens. Moreover, The chickens fed with locusts will grow faster, and their meat will be incomparably delicious. After the locusts are over, if we supply the chickens to the Drunken Immortal restaurant, we can definitely raise the price. Although Li Jingma didn't know which book would record such a boring matter, seeing his son's solemn vow, he nodded thoughtfully. Madame Li then asked, "Xian'er, if we herd the chickens into the fields, what will happen if they eat the crops?" Li Zishuan smiled. "Mother, with so many locusts in the fields, the chickens definitely won't have the appetite to eat the crops." Madame Li was enlightened. Li Zishuan saw that his parents were more or less convinced and asked his father, "Father, how much money can we spare at this stage?" Li Jingma thought for a moment, then said, "Give me 3 days, and I can probably spare 300,000 strings of cash for you." When Li Zishuan heard this, he was shocked. He knew that his father was rich, but he didn't expect him to be so rich that he could spare 300,000 strings of cash in just 3 days. Currently, the entire Tang Empire's annual revenue was only about 20 million strings of cash. Moreover, this 300,000 strings of cash was only a portion of the liquid assets. Adding in the immovable assets, Li Zishuan couldn't imagine how rich his family was. When Li Jingma saw his son swallowing his saliva in shock, he couldn't help but feel a little proud. He had finally regained some of his status in the family. Li Zishuan was stunned for a moment before saying, "Father, let's spare some money. You can get someone to buy food. We'll stock up as much as we can. With more food, we'll have more confidence. As for the other 150,000 strings of cash, I'll use a portion to buy chicken seedlings for the Han village and build a chicken coop. The remaining portion will be kept for emergencies." "Father, what do you think?" With a solution, and more importantly, with the support of his father's strong financial strength, Li Zishuan was in high spirits. He secretly rejoiced that he was reborn as a rich second generation. Otherwise, even if he had a way to control the locusts, it would only be a small matter. But now it was completely different. If the plan went smoothly, Li Zishuan could save a large area of people. Li Jingma stroked his beard and said, "Okay, we'll follow Xian'er's plan. But today's matter must not be spread, or our family will be in trouble." Li Zishuan knew that this was a serious matter. He nodded and said, "Father, don't worry. I know the severity of the matter. In a few days, when Iron Egg's injuries are healed, I'll go with him to the Han village and discuss this matter with Han Lijing. The sooner this plan is carried out, the better." Li Jingma nodded in agreement. At this moment, Madame Li smiled meaningfully and said, "Xian'er, you're not young anymore. It's time to think about marriage. Mother thinks that Miss Han is not bad." Li Jingma's face was full of question marks. He didn't know what was going on. However, Li Zishuan's old face turned red, and he was greatly embarrassed. He hurriedly fled. Madame Li shook her head and laughed. This child. Chapter 49. When Li Changxian returned to the Eastern Palace, he immediately ordered his personal attendant to find 10 young eunuchs who knew how to write. Li Changxian asked them to copy Lan Er's journey to the west as quickly as possible. He stood behind one of the young eunuchs and read the story while he was at it. This made the young eunuch suffer. The crown prince was already urging him. Now that the crown prince was standing behind him, how was he supposed to write? The young eunuch's hands began to tremble uncontrollably, and sweat began to appear on his forehead. As a result, his speed naturally slowed down. Li Changxian had been reading this page for quite some time. Seeing that the young eunuch still hadn't finished copying, he couldn't help but feel displeased. Looking carefully at the young eunuch's trembling hands, Li Changxian understood what was going on. He felt somewhat helpless, but he couldn't be too harsh. Li Changxian could only walk away and say to the young eunuchs who were copying, "You guys copy as quickly as possible. Try to copy 2 copies today. After you finish copying, I will reward you greatly." The eunuchs hurriedly bowed respectfully. Li Changxian turned around and said to the personal attendant, "Zhang Gue, after they finish copying, report to me as soon as possible." The personal attendant quickly bowed and said, "Yes, Your Highness." Li Changxian returned to his bedroom to rest. 4 hours later, Zhang Gue brought 2 booklets and delivered them to Li Changxian's bedroom. "Your Highness, 2 copies have been copied. Please take a look." Li Chengxian quickly walked forward and took one of the booklets. He sat on the bed and impatiently flipped it open while saying to Zhang Gui, "Good. Not bad. Those who copy will be rewarded. Zhang Gui, have someone deliver the remaining booklet in your hands to Tranquil Palace." "Yes." Zhang Gui cupped his hands and left. Only then did Li Chengxian wholeheartedly immerse himself in the bizarre journey to the west. The moon hung in the sky. Tranquil Palace. Big Sister Yin, why are you here at Tranquil Palace at this time? Below Tranquil Palace, a young palace maid dressed in purple saw an acquaintance and quickly went forward to ask. The tall palace maid stepped forward and replied with a smile, "Younger Sister Li Attendant Zhang sent me to deliver a book to Her Royal Highness. He said that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince sent it over. But Her Highness has already gone to bed." Lear raised her head and looked at the attic where the lights had already been turned off and said with difficulty. Yin also looked up and hesitated. His Royal Highness didn't say that he had to personally deliver it to Her Royal Highness. "Why don't you help me put this book in Her Royal Highness's bedroom? After Her Royal Highness wakes up tomorrow, you can inform Her Royal Highness?" Lear tilted her head and thought for a moment. This was indeed a solution. She nodded and agreed. "All right then. Big Sister Yin, give me the book." Lear took journey to the west and entered the palace. Worried that she would wake up the princess, she could only put it on the table in the main hall on the first floor. Anyway, she wasn't worried that someone would take it away. The next morning, Tranquil Palace. When Li saw a little fatty wearing a python robe walking over, she hurriedly went up to greet him. "This servant greets Your Highness Duke of Wei." The little fatty nodded. Where's Tranquil?" This little fatty was the second son of the current emperor and Empress Zhang's son, Duke of Wei, Li Tai. He was only 9 years old this year, but at a young age he was brimming with talent and was peerlessly intelligent. He was fond of literature and had collected tens of thousands of books. Thus, he was deeply doted on by Li Er. Of course, smart people were all somewhat arrogant. Li Tai had always been at odds with Li Chengxian. He looked down on this older brother of his, thinking that Li Chengxian only became the crown prince because he was born a year earlier than him. In terms of talent, Li Tai was confident that he could completely surpass that older brother of his. A few days ago, Li Tai heard from his subordinates that Li Chengxian brought Tranquil out to relax and even brought back a type of delicacy for Imperial Father. As a result, Imperial Father was greatly pleased and praised Li Chengxian for his filial piety and for the harmony between the siblings. Li Tai was somewhat unhappy. He knew that type of delicacy. It was called nibbled chicken. Later on, he also ate it, and he ate a lot. Every day, he had the imperial bodyguards line up to buy it for him to eat. It was indeed delicious, but he felt that Imperial Father shouldn't give the credit to his older brother. This nibbled chicken wasn't invented by the Crown Prince. Therefore, Li Tai also came to Tranquil Palace today to show concern for this younger sister of his. He wanted to see if she wanted to go out to relax, and he could accompany her. Firstly, although Li Tai didn't get along with Li Chengxian, he had always been on good terms with Tranquil. He was also concerned about his younger sister's health. Secondly, if Tranquil wanted to go out to relax, he could also legitimately follow her out. When he returned, he might even receive Imperial Father's praise and say that they siblings were harmonious. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. At this moment, Li bowed and replied, "Your Highness, the princess hasn't woken up yet." Li Tai was a little disappointed. It seemed that he had come early. He casually said, "Oh, then this prince will sit in the front hall for a while and wait for Tranquil to wake up." After saying that, he directly entered the main hall. Li hurriedly went in to serve tea. Li Tai sat on the bench and glanced at a small booklet on the table. On it was written Journey to the West. He couldn't help but feel curious. He thought to himself, what kind of book is this? This prince has read a lot of books, but he has never seen it before. He immediately took the booklet and flipped through it. Li wanted to stop him, but she didn't dare. This Prince of Wei's temper had always been bad. She thought to herself, she could only wait for the princess to come and ask Prince of Wei to return the money. Presumably, Prince of Wei wouldn't go back on his word. Li Tai was attracted by the first page. As he read further, more novel things appeared. Things like a monkey that jumped out from a rock, Patriarch Bodhi, Somersault Cloud, 72 transformations, and uproar in heaven. He had never heard of these novel and strange things before. However, these plots were so hot-blooded and so attractive. Li Tai's mind couldn't help but become more and more immersed in that exciting story. After a while, there was a sound of a table and chair colliding from above. Li Tai was startled awake. Li also reacted and hurriedly said, "It seems that the princess has woken up. Your Highness, Prince of Wei, this servant will take her leave first. This servant needs to serve the princess and put on her clothes." Li Tai waved his hand, and Li hurriedly went upstairs. At this moment, Li Tai saw that he was the only one left in the room. He looked at the book, Journey to the West, and his eyes flashed with extreme reluctance. After pausing for a while, a trace of hesitation and struggle flashed in his eyes. In the end, when he saw that there wasn't much time left and that Changle would come down in a while, Li Tai gritted his teeth, and a trace of determination finally flashed in his eyes. He looked around like a little thief and confirmed that he was the only one in the front hall. Then he stuffed Journey to the West into his long sleeves at lightning speed. He didn't care about the astonished eyes of the two little palace maids standing at the door and directly ran away. In the attic, "Princess, Prince of Wei is already waiting for you downstairs," Li reported while combing Changle's hair. "Oh, Brother Chinke came to look for me? Li, hurry up. Don't let Brother Chinke wait for too long." When Changle heard that Li Tai came to look for her, a trace of happiness flashed across her delicate little face. Li hurriedly sped up and said, "Princess, the Crown Prince sent someone to deliver a book last night. When I saw that Princess had already gone to bed, I put the book in the front hall." Changle's eyes lit up when she heard this. She was overjoyed and said, "That's great. It must be the Journey to the West that Brother Crown Prince heard yesterday. Brother Crown Prince is really careful. He copied it into a book and sent it over. Li, hurry up. I have to go down and take a look." After a quarter of an hour, Changle Palace's main hall. "Li, where's Brother Chinke?" Changle looked at the empty front hall and asked doubtfully. Li also looked confused. She looked around and said doubtfully, "He was still here just now." At this time, a little palace maid came in and carefully reported to Changle, "Princess, I saw Prince of Wei a quarter of an hour ago. He seemed to have something urgent and left in a hurry." Changle was even more confused. She didn't know what was wrong with her brother so early in the morning. After thinking for a while, she couldn't figure it out, so she simply stopped thinking about it. She asked again, "Li, didn't you say that Brother Crown Prince sent a book? Where's the book?" "Princess, the book is over there." Li pointed at the table, but found that there was nothing on it. She couldn't help but be stunned. Then she was terrified. She quickly knelt down and said, "Princess, please forgive me. I really didn't lie. That book was on the table all this time." Prince of Wei just came down and looked through it. Changle thought for a while and finally reacted. She couldn't help but be flustered and exasperated. She stomped her feet and said angrily, "Stinky Chinke, let's see how Changle will deal with you in the future." After saying that, she quickly walked out. She was going to the East Palace. Since Li Tai had stolen Journey to the West, even if she went to find Li Tai now, she probably wouldn't be able to get it back in a short time. She might as well go to the East Palace and see if there were any other copies. It had to be said that Changle really understood Li Tai very well. Li Tai ran back to Prince of Wei's mansion in a flash. He even looked back with a guilty conscience to see if anyone was chasing after him. When he saw that there was no one behind him, he let out a sigh of relief. He instructed the imperial bodyguards at the gate, "Except for my imperial father's summons, if anyone else comes, just say that I am not here. Do you understand?" Although the two imperial bodyguards felt strange, they didn't dare to ask in detail. They quickly bowed and answered. Li Tai then hurriedly returned to his bedroom and carefully took out the small book. Then, he couldn't wait to start reading again. His mind slowly entered the bizarre world of Journey to the West. Chapter 50. Last night, the more Li Chengxian read Journey to the West, the more he read, the more excited he became. It wasn't until the third quarter of the morning that he began to feel sleepy. Unable to endure, he could only reluctantly put down the book and fall into a deep sleep. If Li Zixuan knew that Li Chengxian had not finished Journey to the West after reading for so long, he would definitely despise him deeply. The vernacular version of Journey to the West only had 39 chapters and no more than 100,000 words. Compared to Li Zixuan's previous life speed of reading a novel of 3 to 4 million words in 3 days, it was simply too slow. When Changle arrived, Li Chengxian was still sleeping soundly. In the past, this kind of situation was not common. As the heir to the throne, laziness would be impeached. Moreover, as the crown prince, he had to pay respects to the empress every morning. This servant pays respects to your imperial highness. Seeing Princess Changle leisurely walk over, Yen'er promptly stepped forward to pay her respects. Nodding her head, Changle asked, where is big brother crown prince? Her voice was as clear and melodious as an oriole's, as if waking up the entire garden. Hesitantly, Yen'er replied, reporting to the princess, the crown prince has not yet woken up. Changle wrinkled her beautiful brows, somewhat incredulous. She said, quickly wake big brother crown prince up. In a moment, we still have to pay respects to imperial mother. Finished speaking, she entered the palace. Hearing this, Yen'er promptly went to the crown prince's sleeping quarters and woke him up. A short moment later, Li Chengxian walked out, yawning with 2 dark circles under his eyes. Changle came so early. Seeing Changle sitting there, Li Chengxian casually greeted her. Rolling her eyes, Changle angrily said, big brother crown prince, why did you wake up so late today? Don't you know what time it is? We still have to pay respects to imperial mother. Hearing this, Li Chengxian's drowsiness immediately dissipated. Yen'er quickly helped me wash up. On the palace road, brother and sister hurriedly made their way to the inner court. Seeing Li Chengxian lose his self-control today, Changle curiously asked, big brother crown prince, what's wrong with you today? You look listless. Li Chengxian said embarrassedly, I was reading Journey to the West last night and forgot the time. Hearing Journey to the West, Changle remembered the purpose of going to the Eastern Palace in the morning. She said angrily, brother crown prince, the journey to the west that you gave me last night was secretly taken away by brother Qingke this morning. Humph, brother Qingke is too much. She wrinkled her nose. Li Chengxian was stunned. His younger brother had always considered himself a modest gentleman. How could he do such a tasteless thing? But seeing that his younger sister was a little unhappy, he coaxed her. Don't be angry, Changle. After I gave you a book yesterday, I asked Zhang Gailing to copy a few more. They should have finished copying by now. After we pay our respects to Mother, you can follow me back to the Eastern Palace to get them. Hearing this, Changle was overjoyed. She secretly thought that Brother Crown Prince was so considerate. That's great. Thank you, Brother Crown Prince. After paying her respects to Emperor Zhang's son, Changle impatiently pulled Li Chengxian to the Eastern Palace. Just now, Changle had not made any complaints about Li Tai in front of her imperial mother. She only believed that Li Tai was playing around with her and was not truly angry. It was not worthwhile to tell her imperial mother and have Li Tai be criticized. It had to be said that Princess Changle's heart was extremely good. Li Chengxian could only call for Zhang Gui and have him fetch another copy of Journey to the West for Changle. Changle took the book and fondled it admiringly. If it were not for the fact that this was not the right place, she would have immediately flipped it open to read the story. Li Chengxian understood his younger sister's feelings. He said, Changle, quickly go back and read. Today, I still have to make a trip out of the palace to return the original copy of Journey to the West to Lan. While I'm at it, I'll bring an interesting person to Li Zixuan. Changle curiously asked, who is it? Li Chengxian kept her in suspense. Someone who is like Li Zixuan, always having some strange and wonderful ideas. Oh, that's right. Yesterday, I saw a very interesting toy at the Li estate. It's called a skateboard. It's very suitable for you, Changle. I also plan to open a shop with Lisa Schwan that will specialize in selling these strange and bizarre items. Hearing this, Changle became even more interested. Hearing Crown Prince say this, Changle is also interested. If Crown Prince brother does not have enough money, Changle can lend some of her private savings to Crown Prince brother. Li Chengxian thought it over. The daily expenses of the Eastern Palace were quite large. To take out 200 strings of coins at once and have to scrape them together was truly troublesome. He said, Changle, why don't you take out 100 strings of coins? I'll give you 10% of the shares. What do you think? Changle was very excited to have the opportunity to open a shop. Okay, tomorrow, I'll have someone send the money over. It's a pity that I still have to attend the palace ceremony today. Otherwise, I would be able to leave the palace with Crown Prince brother and take a look at that shop. Li Chengxian comforted her. There's no rush. When the shop officially opens, you can come with me. Prince Wei's residence. Li Tai had not gone out ever since he returned in the morning. He even forgot to greet Zhang's son. This little fatty was lying on the bed, reading Journey to the West with great interest while muttering to himself. Sigh, this monkey is really too heaven-defying. He even dares to bully the Jade Emperor. This is really King satisfying. Wow, this golden hoop incantation is really powerful. This monkey won't dare to be impudent in the future. This golden cudgel is really magical. It could be big or small. I'll ask the Imperial Works supervisor if he can make one for me. This Zhu Beiji is really funny. I can't take it anymore. Huh. Sigh, why is this damned monk so stupid? This old woman is obviously a transformation of the white bone spirit. How can he not see it? If I were Sun Wukong, I would definitely beat this damned monk to death with a single blow. I'm so angry. Huff, huff. The maids outside the bedchamber could not help but look at each other in dismay when they heard Prince Wei's angry curses and laughter. They thought to themselves, could it be that Prince Wei had lost his mind? Li Tai was quick-witted. His reading speed was much faster than Li Chengxian's. He finished reading Journey to the West in one morning. Sigh, it's finished so quickly? Which damned person wrote this? It's so short. He could have written another 100 or so chapters. Li Tai said angrily as he flipped through the book and realized that it was gone. He angrily threw the book to the ground. However, even though he threw the book away, he could not help but recall the story he had just read. Li Tai hesitated for a while before picking up the book. He muttered, this story is really interesting. Let me see who wrote this book. I'll get him to write a story for me later. He saw a person's name on the cover of the book. Lisa Schwan? I've never heard of him. However, this person is quite talented to be able to come up with such an interesting story. However, the writing style is immature. Why does it look like it was written by a child? It's such a good story, but the writing is so lousy. It's a disgrace to the educated. Li Tai was still thinking about how talented the person who could come up with such an interesting story was. However, when he saw the words, he could not help but feel angry. The young eunuchs of the Eastern Palace copied the original handwriting in order to respect the original author. At this moment, the words that Li Tai saw were naturally immature. In the eyes of a prince like him, who had a small accomplishment in calligraphy, these words were like dog scratches. They were not worthy of such an interesting story. Thinking about it this way, although the person who wrote this story had a strange idea, it was only a little clever. It could not be compared to this prince's talent. Li Tai stroked his chin and thought narcissistically. P.S. Some people are thinking that the story is progressing too slowly. Even now, the main character hasn't come up with many inventions. Swordsmen admit that this is indeed the case. Swordsmen in the early stages of a story have to spend a lot of time and effort to portray the personalities of the characters around the main character to set up a stage for the main character. Swordsmen don't want the main character to only come up with inventions. Swordsmen want to create characters with flesh and blood. They don't want to simply copy modern inventions and bring them back to ancient times to build up the plot. This is too blunt. The main character will slowly bring in many advanced technologies that Great Tang doesn't have. There will be many exciting things. Everyone, don't be anxious. However, Swordsman will make sure that every invention comes naturally. This is a story with flesh and blood. It isn't a simple encyclopedia that relies on inventions. Swordsmen want to let the main character fully assimilate into Great Tang before changing it. If the main character comes up with advanced technologies, the main character won't be able to acclimatize. Swordsmen want to make the plot more natural and rich. So, everyone, don't be anxious. You will fall in love with many characters in the story. Swordsmen are already sick of fast food novels. Swordsmen don't want to write fast food novels. Those novels are enjoyable for a moment, but after a while, they become boring and don't leave an impression on the readers. Thus, readers who want to see the main character using advanced technologies to show off his skills in Great Tang, be patient. Whatever you want, this book will have it. It just needs to be set up so that when the conditions are right, success will come naturally. Don't you think so? Chapter 51. Iron Egg. Are your injuries better? After breakfast, Li Zixuan came to Mingwei Xian to check on Iron Egg's injuries. When Iron Egg saw that the young master had come, he quickly got up but was pressed down by Li Zixuan. He could only continue to lie down and said, "Young master, Iron Egg's injuries are almost healed. You should be able to get out of bed tomorrow." Li Zixuan nodded and said, That's good. Pay more attention to rest. Tell Xiao He what you want to eat." Thank you, young master," Iron Egg said gratefully. Li Zixuan saw that there was nothing he could do here, so he nodded and turned to leave. Iron Egg stretched out his hand and wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't have the courage and put down his hand dejectedly. Young master, you're here?" Li Zixuan had just gone out when he bumped into Han Yushi, who had just returned with a basin of clothes. Li Zixuan looked at the clothes Han Yushi was carrying and frowned. "Why did you go to wash the clothes? Why didn't you let the servants in the manor wash them?" Hearing the concern in Li Zixuan's words, Han Yushi said shyly, "Young master, Yushi isn't a spoiled young lady from a big family. Yushi can do these things herself." Li Zixuan was a little helpless and couldn't persuade her anymore. He could only remain silent. Han Yushi suddenly seemed to think of something and exclaimed, Young master, I almost forgot about business. Please wait for Yushi for a while." After saying that, she hurriedly ran into the room, leaving behind a confused Li Zixuan. After a while, Han Yushi came out with a wine gourd. Li Zixuan looked at it and found it familiar. After thinking carefully, it seemed that when Yushi ran over to ask for help yesterday, she was carrying it. He couldn't help but be a little puzzled. "Young master, Iron Egg and I entered the city this time, mainly to bring some of the first batch of fruit wine for you to try. After what happened yesterday, Yushi almost forgot about it." After saying that, Han Yushi herself felt a little embarrassed. Li Zixuan laughed in spite of himself. But when he thought of the fruit wine he had drunk at the Han Manor, Li Zixuan really missed it. Just as he was about to open it and smell the wine, he saw the little girl, Xiao He, hurriedly running over, as if someone was chasing after her. Young master, Grand. Crown Prince is here." The young maidservant ran over and said while panting. If it was in the past, she wouldn't have been so nervous. However, ever since she found out that Li Zixuan was the Crown Prince yesterday, she was so scared that she screamed when she saw Li Zixuan today. She quickly ran over to find Li Zixuan. This made Li Changxian very gloomy. He thought to himself, could it be that my complexion is not good today? Li Zixuan, on the other hand, was very calm. He made a "oh" sound and said, "If the Crown Prince is here, then he's here. How can you be so flustered? You have to be as calm as me." After saying that, he turned and said to Han Yushi, "Then Yushi, I'll leave first. I'll come back later to try this wine. Call me if you need anything." Han Yushi nodded. Li Zixuan came to the front hall and found that it wasn't just Li Changxian. There was also a man around 16 or 17 years old accompanying him. That man was quite handsome, but he didn't care about his appearance and was dressed very casually. After Li Zixuan came in, he bowed to Li Changxian and said, "Greetings, Your Highness the Crown Prince." In private, he could call Li Zixuan brother, but now that there were outsiders, Li Zixuan didn't want to give others something to use against him because of such a small matter. Li Changxian hurriedly said, Brother Zishuan, there's no need to be so courteous. Today, I'll introduce you to an interesting person. This is Yin Xiaoning, the son of the Minister of Works, Yin lied. He's obsessed with the art of machinery. Xiaoning, this is Li Zishuan. I've mentioned to you before that he's quite good at all kinds of exquisite machinery. Moreover, his imagination is often wild and unrestrained, always exceeding expectations. The two of you should be able to become like-minded friends. Hearing Li Chengqian's introduction, Li Zishuan was secretly surprised. He only asked Li Chengqian to help him find a skilled craftsman, who knew that he would actually trick the son of the Minister of Works. How could he afford to hire such a great person? However, the name Yin lied was somewhat familiar. Li Zishuan stopped his wild thoughts and cupped his hands. Greetings, Brother Xiaoning. Since the Crown Prince personally introduced him, Yin Xiaoning didn't put on airs and cupped his hands in return. He smiled and said, Greetings, younger brother. I've heard from the Crown Prince that younger brother always has wonderful ideas and can create many new strange things. Today, I've specially come to broaden my horizons. Li Zishuan said modestly, I don't dare. The Crown Prince has overpraised me. If Brother Xiaoning doesn't mind, you can call me Little Xian. Li Chengqian was a bit impatient when he saw the two of them dawdling. He stepped forward and patted their shoulders. He smiled and said, All right, stop pretending. We'll all be good friends in the future, so there's no need to be so polite. Ha ha. The three of them laughed. Yin Xiaoning's disguise was torn off by Li Zishuan, and his true face was revealed. He didn't continue to be polite with Li Zishuan and went straight to the point. Little Xian, I've heard from the Crown Prince that you've made a scooter. It's quite interesting. Can you show it to me? Li Zishuan wasn't used to the way he spoke just now. Seeing Yin Xiaoning immediately change his style, he was quite happy. He said, No problem. Since Brother Xiaoning wants to see it, then follow me. Lan should be in the west courtyard at this time. Other than sleeping in the backyard, this little girl would usually stay at Li Zishuan's place. Li Zishuan brought the two of them to his courtyard. As expected, he saw Lan riding a scooter in the west courtyard with Xiao, she looking after her. Li Zishuan waved his hand and shouted, Lan come over quickly. Lan heard her brother's call and quickly turned her head. She rode the scooter and ran over like a gust of wind. Xiao also ran over behind her. Ever since Yin Xiaoning entered the courtyard, his eyes never left the scooter under Lan feet. Currently, the only means of transportation on land in the Tang Dynasty were horses and carriages. It was the first time Yin Xiaoning saw such a light and fast scooter. He couldn't help but be captivated by it. Greetings to the Crown Prince. Xiao quickly bowed when she came over. She also knew Li Chengqian's true identity yesterday. Li Chengqian waved his hand and said, No need to be so polite. Other people were afraid of Li Chengqian, but Lana wasn't. She was still young and didn't know how terrifying imperial power was. The little girl put the scooter aside and came to Li Chengqian's side. She said, Big Brother Gaoming, did you bring Lan journey to the west? Li Chengqian smiled bitterly. This little girl wanted to return something to him the moment they met, but luckily he brought it over today. He passed the booklet in his hand to her and smiled. I brought it. To thank Lan Big Brother Gaoming also brought a gift for Lan As he spoke, he took out a palm-sized jade white lion from his sleeve. Wow, so cute. Thank you, Big Brother Gaoming. Lan won't ask Big Brother Gaoming for the previous request. Lan snatched the jade white lion and cheered. Li Chengqian was overjoyed. He didn't expect to get such a pleasant surprise by giving a jade white lion. No one wanted to owe someone a favor all the time, not to mention that he was the empire's heir. Every action of his was important. Li Chengqian secretly thought that this jade white lion was really worth it. Li Zishuan secretly shook his head. This little girl really picked up sesame seeds and threw away watermelons. Obviously, a promise from Li Chengqian was much more precious than this little toy. However, this was his little sister's own choice. Li Zishuan didn't want to interfere. Lan, come and greet your big brother Xiaoning. He's here to make something fun for you today. Li Zishuan saw that after talking for so long, he actually forgot that Yin Xiaoning was at the side. He quickly said, when Lan heard this, Her eyes instantly lit up. Other than eating, a child hobby was nothing more than playing. Lana went forward and said, obediently. Lana greets big brother shouting. A cough cough. Hello, little sister Lon. Hearing someone call him, Yin shouting quickly shifted his gaze from the scooter. At this time, Lana mischievously shook the jade white lion in her hand and blinked her eyes. She meant, where's the greeting gift? Yin shouting was dumbfounded. His mind wasn't here just now, so he didn't know what was going on. This was like a child asking for a red packet from an adult during Chinese New Year. Lisa Xuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He scolded, Lana, don't be rude. Chapter 52. Little Xian, can you lend me your scooter to take a look? The few of them had just sat down on the stone bench in the west courtyard. They hadn't even exchanged greetings for a while when Yin shouting couldn't help but ask impatiently. Yin shouting seemed to be an impatient person. Lisa Xuan found it funny and said, no problem, brother shouting, you can take a look if you want. Hearing this, Yin shouting hurriedly placed the scooter on the stone table. Then, he came over and observed it carefully. From time to time, Yin shouting would flip the scooter around while sighing. In less than 15 minutes, Yin shouting had thoroughly studied the structure of the scooter. He put down the scooter, looked at Lisa Xuan, and said, Lisa Xuan, little Xian, although the structure of this scooter is simple, its creativity is really surprising. Why didn't I think of such a simple and convenient thing before? I really can't figure it out. Yin shouting hit his head in annoyance after he said that. Lisa Xuan smiled and said, brother shouting, you don't have to be annoyed. Actually, think about it carefully. The structures of many things that we use in life are generally not complicated. For example, the structure of a carriage is also very simple. But why didn't anyone think of making a carriage hundreds of years ago? In the end, it's a person's creative thinking problem. My master once told me that there's nothing that can't be done, because sometimes creativity is far more valuable than technology. If your thinking isn't broad enough, you'll never be able to create valuable new things. Yin shouting was enlightened. He clapped his hands and laughed. Yes, that's what I meant. I've encountered many similar problems before. It's obviously very simple, but I just can't think of it. Little Xian, you've hit the nail on the head. Li Qingxian also nodded thoughtfully at the side. Lisa Xuan said modestly, brother shouting, you're just a bystander. Many times, if you jump out of the picture and change your thinking, you can often get unexpected results. Yin shouting nodded in agreement. He looked at the scooter and said, but little Xian, your scooter has a lot of imperfections. For example, the wheels will probably be very jerky when you turn them. Also, the handle at the front of your scooter can only be used as a handrail. It can't control the direction of the scooter. Lisa Xuan nodded. He thought to himself that this brother was indeed from an engineering family. He really understood the mechanical structure. He could see the flaws of this simple scooter at a glance. Well, brother shouting is right. When I made this scooter, it was just a casual move to coax my little sister. This scooter can indeed continue to be improved. Oh, so little Xian, you already have an improvement plan? Yin shouting was very curious. He could see the problem with the scooter, but it didn't mean that he had a solution now. I do have some ideas. Xiao Shi, go to the kitchen and give me a piece of unburnt wood. Lisa Xuan instructed Xiao Shi. He could barely write with a brush, but drawing was really difficult for him. The lines of an engineering drawing needed to be horizontal and vertical. The soft tip of a brush was very difficult to do. At least, he couldn't do it. Xiao Shi accepted the order and left. Lisa Xuan saw that Yin Shaoning and Li Chengxian were confused, so he smiled and explained, I'm more used to drawing with charcoal. I want to draw a drawing for Brother Shaoning so that it'll be easier to explain. The two of them nodded. After a while, Xiao Shi walked over with a burnt wood stick. After Lisa Xuan took it, he pulled out his sword and swung it a few times. Everyone only saw a blur in front of their eyes. They saw that Lisa Xuan had a thin and long wooden stick in his hand. It was even sharp at the bottom. It was also Lisa Xuan's first time using the wind-chasing sword to sharpen a pencil. When he saw that the result was pretty good, he couldn't help but exclaim in his heart that his control over his strength had become more skillful. Good swordsmanship. I didn't expect little Xian to know swordsmanship. Yin Xiaoning praised. The Tang people valued martial arts, and the children of high officials and nobles loved to carry swords. Although Yin Xiaoning's swordsmanship wasn't high, he still had a good eye. He didn't expect that this new friend of his not only had a unique idea in terms of machinery, but also seemed to be quite skilled in swordsmanship. Yin Xiaoning was now more and more interested in Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan didn't reply. He directly spread out a piece of paper on the stone table and started to draw. In his previous life, Li Zixuan was very proficient in mechanical drawing. Whether it was a computer drawing or a manual drawing, the drawings he drew didn't need to be modified by a teacher. They could be sent to the factory directly for processing. In his previous life, Li Zixuan's college organized an internship at the FAW headquarters. Their task was to go to the workshop and draw the key parts of the cars they saw in the workshop. They also had to mark the dimensions. At that time, due to the limited conditions in the workshop, they couldn't even use a ruler. As a result, many of the students drew crookedly like a dog paddle. Only Li Zixuan's drawings were like works of art. It wasn't because he had taken art classes, but because Li Zixuan's copying ability was very strong since he was young. When he was young, he could look at the New Year's painting on the wall and completely draw the flying dragon. Moreover, his drawings were very beautiful. Later on, when he went to college, Li Zixuan couldn't help but regret that he didn't enroll in an art school. It had to be said that Li Zixuan was an engineering dog with artistic cells. At this moment, Li Zixuan was in front of the paper. He closed his eyes and thought about the structure of the ball bearing. The strange thing was that Li Zixuan's mind quickly formed a three-dimensional model of the ball bearing. This strange scene scared him so much that he almost cried out in surprise. When he opened his eyes, he saw that everyone was waiting for him to pick up the pen. Li Zixuan didn't care about the reason why there was a three-dimensional image in his mind and directly picked up the pen to draw. At this moment, it was really smooth. Li Zixuan felt very strange at this moment. It was as if his brain was a computer and his hands were a printer. The three-dimensional image in his mind was directly reproduced on the paper through his hands. Soon, Li Zixuan had drawn the three-dimensional view of the ball bearing and the isometric view on the paper. Of course, he didn't mark the dimensions and tolerances. He was just explaining the theory of the ball bearing and didn't need to do that. Li Zixuan put down the pen and sighed softly. Yin Xiaoning couldn't wait to come over. He wanted to see what Li Zixuan was drawing. He saw that there were 4 different drawings on the paper. The lines were horizontal and vertical. Some were real and some were fake. This was the first time Yin Xiaoning had seen this kind of drawing. But why'd he draw 4 drawings? Could it be 4 parts? Yin Xiaoning looked at Li Zixuan with a dumbfounded expression. Li Zixuan was confused by his look and wondered, "What's wrong, Brother Xiaoning? Is there something wrong?" Yin Xiaoning pointed at the paper and asked embarrassedly, "Little Xian, why did you draw 4 drawings? What does this mean?" Li Zixuan was stunned. Was this not how the ancient craftsmen drew drawings? Did they not know about the three-dimensional view? Brother Xiaoning, this is my first time drawing a mechanical drawing. Maybe the drawing method is different from yours. How did Brother Xiaoning draw before? Yin Xiaoning suddenly understood. Oh, I see. Coincidentally, I have a few drawings with me. Little Xian, let me show you. After he finished speaking, he took out a roll of drawings from his sleeve. Li Zixuan took the drawings and opened it. Sure enough, the ancient craftsmen didn't use the three-dimensional view drawing method. They only drew planar drawings. The parts that couldn't be expressed in planar drawings were directly marked with words. Li Zixuan looked at the densely packed words on the drawings and couldn't help but have a headache. This was too inconvenient. No, I have to teach Yin Xiaoning modern engineering drawing methods. Otherwise, it would be too troublesome to communicate with him in the future. Li Zixuan thought to himself. Chapter 53. Li Residence, West Courtyard. Li Zixuan rolled up the drawing and passed it to Yin Xiaoning. Brother Xiaoning, I understand your drawing method, but I still think my method is more concise and clear. Oh, then little Xian, hurry up and tell Big Brother what's behind your drawing method. Yin Xiaoning saw that Li Zixuan was very confident in his drawing method and couldn't help but want to know what was so special about it. Brother, This drawing is a tri-view and an isometric side view of a component. The tri-view is to draw the outline of the object from the front, side, and top. For example, this stone, Brother Shouting, look at it from the front. Li Zishuan picked up a stone as a reference and explained the tri-view drawing method to Yin Shouting. After a while, he gave Yin Shouting the part that the professional teacher taught him. Brother Shouting, look, with these tri-view drawings, the craftsman can form the model of the component in their mind. It's also easier to mark the dimensions on the tri-view drawings. After listening to Li Zishuan's explanation, Yin Shouting stood up and paced around. He frowned and thought for a moment, then suddenly shouted, "Wonderful, wonderful, this drawing method is wonderful. Xiao Xian, you're a genius. Your drawing method is indeed clearer, and there are fewer unnecessary markings." Yin Shouting sat down again and rubbed his hands. He stared at Li Zishuan and said excitedly, "I must tell my father about this drawing method and let him spread it. Xiao Xian, are you willing to be a supervisor? If my father knows of your talent, he'll definitely be willing to ask His Majesty for an official position for you." Li Zishuan shook his head. "Thank you for your kindness, Brother Shouting. I've been away from home for many years and just came back a few days ago. I don't want to be an official yet." The supervisor was almost equivalent to the Chinese Academy of Sciences in his previous life. Li Zishuan wasn't willing to do research there every day. Moreover, he had a lot of things to do recently. The Strange Interest Pavilion was about to open and the Locust Extermination Plan was about to start in 2 days. Hearing Li Zishuan's rejection, Yin Shouting sighed. "Ah, that's too bad." Yin Shouting looked at the drawing again and asked doubtfully, "Xiao Xian, what's this isometric side view for?" This view is mainly to help the craftsman form a 3D model of the object in their mind. Because some objects with complicated structures, it's hard to form a 3D model with just a tri-view drawing. Yin Shouting nodded his head thoughtfully. At this time, Li Zishuan smiled meaningfully and said, "Brother Shouting, you only noticed the drawing method, but you neglected the drawing itself. Oh, is there a mystery behind it? Don't tell me. Let's take a look." Yin Shouting began to re-examine the blueprint according to the principle of 3 views that Li Zishuan had just explained to him. After looking at it, Yin Shouting stood up and closed his eyes, imagining the 3D model of the object in his mind. After a while, Yin Shouting opened his eyes and said excitedly, "I know what this is. Xiao Xian, what are you planning to do with it?" Although he could imagine the 3D model of the object, he couldn't think of a use for it. Li Zishuan smiled. "I aimed a ball bearing." Brother Shouting, think about it. What would happen if it was used to connect the wheels and axles? Yin Shouting was quite knowledgeable in mechanical design. After hearing Li Zishuan's explanation, he immediately understood. He was even more excited than before. "That's amazing. This is a genius design. With this ball bearing, all vehicles, no matter if it's a horse carriage or a truck, will have very little resistance." "Xiao Xian, how did you come up with this? This invention is amazing." Li Chengxian didn't know much about machinery and didn't say anything before. Now that he saw Yin Shouting praising the object, he couldn't help but ask, "Shouting, is this thing really that good?" Yin Shouting was extremely excited at the moment. After hearing the Crown Prince's question, he confirmed without thinking. Of course, it's not an exaggeration to call this the most useful invention in Tang Dynasty. Your Highness, you might not know this, but if all the carriages in Tang Dynasty use this ball bearing, then the same horse will be able to pull at least 50% more of the load of the carriage. At that time, merchants will be able to transport more goods at once. During war, a grain carriage will be able to carry more rations. Other than carriages, other machines that require transmission can also use this ball bearing. Your Highness, do you think this invention is important or not? Hearing Yin Shouting's analysis, Li Chengxian was also stunned. He didn't care if the merchants could transport more goods, but it was crucial that they could increase the efficiency of transporting rations. In this era, one of the decisive factors in the outcome of a war was the issue of rations. Li Chengxian finally understood that Yin Shouting's previous praise wasn't excessive at all. He was also a little excited now. "Brother Zishuan, this item is of great importance. Can I bring it back to the palace?" Li Chengxian also knew that Li Tai had been competing with him for favor recently, but he didn't have any other good ideas. He couldn't act like a spoiled child in front of Li Tai's eldest grandson, could he? If he dared to do so, he would definitely be reprimanded by Li Heir for not having the dignity of country's heir. There were some things that Li Tai could do, but he couldn't because he was the crown prince. Seeing Li Tai dote on Li Heir more and more, Li Chengxian was also anxious, but he could only be anxious. Now that he saw that Li Zishuan's invention had such great uses and could even be used in the military, Li Chengxian's first thought was that perhaps he could use this item to gain Li Heir's praise. At the same time, he could also ask for some benefits for Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan was a little helpless at this moment. Although the ball bearing had many uses, these two people didn't need to be so excited, right? Hearing that Li Chengxian wanted to immediately present the blueprint to Li Heir, Li Zishuan hurriedly said, "Your Highness, this ball bearing is indeed very useful, but we don't know if it can be made yet. If we present the blueprint to His Majesty now, I'm afraid we're being too hasty." When Li Chengxian heard this, he felt that it was reasonable and secretly thought that he was too impetuous. Brother Zishuan's words are very true. Then I'll wait for you and Xiaoning to make this thing and install it on the carriage before reporting it to Imperial Father. At that time, I'll definitely give you two a reward. When Yin Xiaoning heard Li Zishuan's words, he began to frown and ponder. He was a little too excited just now and didn't even think about whether this thing could be made or not. He thought for a while and hesitated before saying, "Little Xian, I'm afraid that this ball bearing is very difficult to make." When Li Zishuan proposed this ball bearing, he didn't know if it could be made with the Tang Dynasty's technology. Although he was mentally prepared, he still felt a little disappointed when he heard Yin Xiaoning's negative answer. However, he also wanted to know where the technical difficulties were, so he asked, "Brother Xiaoning, where will the difficulties be?" Chapter 54. Hearing Li Zishuan's question, Yin Xiaoning thought for a while and said, "Xiao Xian, I think the most important part of your ball bearing is the steel ball between the inner and outer walls of the bearing. If the steel ball is not the same size or irregular in shape, then the ball bearing will be useless." Hearing Yin Xiaoning's analysis, Li Zishuan also admired him. This person was indeed an expert and could always see the key to the problem. He cupped his fist and said, "Brother Xiaoning is right. The size and quality of the steel ball are indeed very important." Yin Xiaoning nodded and continued, "This is where the problem lies. As far as I know, it's very difficult to make steel balls that are exactly the same size and shape with the current technology." Li Zishuan suddenly realized that this was where the problem lay. With the current technology of the Tang Empire, it was as difficult to make a batch of steel balls of the same size and shape as the people in the 80s and 90s to make the ball on the tip of a ballpoint pen. Without a complete industrial system, Li Zishuan also couldn't solve this problem. He couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Suddenly, Li Zishuan remembered that in addition to ball bearings, there were also roller bearings. Although they weren't as good as the former, they were still many times better than the current bearings of the Tang Empire. "Brother Xiaoning, since there's no way to make a batch of steel balls of the same size, I wonder if it's possible to make a batch of small iron rods of the same size with the current technology?" Li Zishuan asked. "Of course, it's not difficult." Yin Xiaoning nodded. The process of making iron rods was easier to control than steel balls. Then there's no problem. Li Zishuan was a little happy when he heard this. He smiled and said, "Brother Xiaoning, I have an idea. We can replace the steel balls in the ball bearing with small iron rods of the same size, and then add some grease to increase lubrication. What do you think?" Yin Xiaoning closed his eyes and thought for a while. Then he opened his eyes and looked at Li Zishuan with a strange expression. Li Zishuan was puzzled by his look. He touched his nose and said, "Brother Xiaoning, what's wrong?" Yin Xiaoning sighed and said, "Xiao Xian, you're really a monster. Why do you have such wonderful ideas one after another? In the past, I thought that I was extremely smart. Today, it's really infuriating to compare myself to others. I really want to break open your head and see what's inside." Li Zishuan laughed and said, "Don't worship me. I'm just a legend, ha!" Yin Xiaoning was speechless. Li Chengxian interrupted, "Xiaoning, does that mean you can create it?" Yin Xiaoning nodded and said, "Your Highness, if we use this plan, we can indeed make it. Although it may not be as good as the ball bearings, compared to the bearings currently in use, this kind of roller bearing is still completely superior. As for the specific performance, we can only test it after it's built and installed in the car. Li Chengxian said excitedly, "That's good. Shouting, you'll have to work hard for the next few days to make this thing. I'm looking forward to seeing how light and convenient my Tang Empire's carriages will be after installing this bearing." Yin Shouting replied, "Yes, Your Highness. When I get back, I'll have my father ask the supervising craftsman to make a batch first." Li Chengxian nodded and looked at Li Zishuan. He smiled and said, "Brother Li Zishuan, are you satisfied with the people I brought to you today?" Li Zishuan laughed and said, "Satisfied, of course I'm satisfied. Brother Shouting is not only skilled, but also straightforward. It's my fortune to have such a friend." Yin Shouting also laughed and said, "Haha, I'm also very happy to have a good friend like you, Xiaoxian." Li Zishuan also had the intention to rope in a technical talent like Yin Shouting. He said, "Brother Shouting, the Crown Prince and I have opened a strange interest pavilion that specializes in selling rare items like scooters. Moreover, I have a lot of other interesting things in my mind that I'll make and sell in the future. I wonder if Brother Shouting is interested?" Yin Shouting slapped his thigh and agreed, "Of course I'm interested. I just don't know how to cooperate." He wasn't very interested in making money. He was mainly interested in the other interesting things that Li Zishuan had mentioned. He wanted to see what other ideas Li Zishuan had in the future. Li Zishuan explained, "Currently, the Crown Prince of the Strange Interest Pavilion owns 30% of the shares with 200 strings of cash and his network of connections. I own 70% with 2,000 strings of cash and the ideas in my mind. If Brother Shouting wants to join, you don't have to pay. I only need Brother Shouting's skills. I can give Brother Shouting 10% of the shares. What do you think, Brother Shouting?" Yin Shouting was a little surprised when he heard that the Crown Prince only owned 30% of the shares. He secretly thought that Li Zishuan was really bold. Since the Crown Prince only owned 30% of the shares, then it was kind of Li Zishuan to give him 10%. Moreover, he didn't have to pay. He would get dividends every year. He could also stay by Li Zishuan's side and see his creative ideas. Thinking about it this way, it was quite worth it. Yin Shouting nodded and agreed. "Okay, then let's cooperate happily in the future. We'll strive to make the Strange Interest Pavilion the best in Tang Dynasty." There was finally a technical backbone in the team. Moreover, Yin Shouting's father was the Minister of Works. If he joined the team, they could borrow part of the research and development ability of the work supervisor. Li Zishuan breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Okay, then the Crown Prince and I will be the chairman and vice chairman of the Strange Interest Pavilion. I'll be in charge of the future development of the Strange Interest Pavilion. The Crown Prince can just sit there and wait to collect money. Brother Shouting, you'll be the technical director of the Strange Interest Pavilion. You'll be in charge of technology and production." Technical director? What was that? Why did it sound like a eunuch? Yin Shouting frowned and said, "Can you change my position?" Li Zishuan. They chatted for a while. Seeing that it was getting late, the two of them got up and prepared to leave. Li Zishuan suddenly remembered that there was one more thing that he didn't say. So he added, "Brother Shouting, I'm planning to sell the scooters in the first batch of goods in the Strange Interest Pavilion. However, we don't have a workshop yet. I wonder if you can commission the works supervisor to produce 300 of these scooters first. We can pay the wages and materials according to the market price." Yin Shouting nodded. "No problem. I'll go back and tell my father." Apart from completing the tasks assigned by the higher-ups, the works supervisor would usually take on some private jobs to support the family. As long as it didn't affect the government's tasks, the higher-ups would turn a blind eye to it. Li Zishuan said happily, "Then I'll leave it to you. However, we must have our own workshop in the future. If Brother Shouting knows any familiar craftsmen, I could spend a lot of money to hire them." Yin Shouting nodded his head in agreement. I'll take note of that in the future." At this moment, Li Chengxian spoke up, "Brother Zishuan, there is something that I forgot to tell you. Today, I've given 10% of the shares to Changle. In the future, she can be considered one of the shareholders of our Strange Interest Pavilion." Li Zixuan was very fond of that clever and gentle little girl. Thinking it over, he said, "Since Her Imperial Highness the Princess wishes to become a shareholder, then I'll give 10% of my shares to the princess. There's no need to give it to the Crown Prince." His father's words last night were reasonable. The Crown Prince represented the imperial family. If he only gave 30% of the shares, it would be hard to avoid gossip. Fortunately, he could use Princess Changle's name to give another 10% of the shares. This way, as long as the strange interest pavilion didn't take the initiative to court disaster, there would be no worries about its future. Li Zixuan was somewhat surprised. He didn't expect Li Zixuan to be so generous today. However, it would be a waste if he didn't take advantage of this opportunity. Smiling, he said, "Then I'll thank Brother Zixuan for his good intentions on behalf of Changle. There's no need for your Imperial Highness to be so courteous." Since the matter had been settled, Li Chengxian and Yin Xiaoning took their leave. Li Zixuan inwardly breathed a sigh of relief. The strange interest pavilion had finally taken shape. Chapter 55. After lunch, Li Zixuan recalled that Han Yushi wanted him to try the newly brewed fruit wine in the morning, but he was interrupted by Li Chengxian and Yin Xiaoning. Thinking of this, Li Zixuan went to Mingwei Xian to look for Han Yushi. "Young master, you're here?" Han Yushi said happily. "Yes, I was about to try the newly brewed fruit wine in the morning, but I was interrupted, so I came over to try it in the afternoon." Li Zixuan nodded. "Young master, please take a seat here. Yushi will pour you some wine." Li Zixuan smiled and nodded. Han Yushi then walked into the room to get the wine. After a while, Han Yushi came out with a wine gourd and a wine glass. "Young master, please try it." Han Yushi poured a glass of wine and handed it over. Li Zixuan took the wine glass and sniffed it lightly. A mellow fragrance of wild fruits entered his nostrils, making him feel as if he was in a forest. Li Zixuan took a sip. It was sweet and mellow. Although he had drunk it once at the Han village, he still felt amazed when he drank it again. "Yushi, who did you learn how to brew wine from? I see that many brewers in the city don't brew as good as yours." Li Zixuan drank the fruit wine and couldn't help but ask in confusion. Hearing Li Zixuan's praise, Han Yushi smiled and said, "Young master, you flatter me. How can Yushi's skills be compared to the brewers in the city? My mother taught me how to brew wine. My father always loved to drink the wine my mother brewed. Later on, my mother passed away, so I brewed wine for my father." He didn't expect Yushi's mother to be a master brewer. Li Zixuan continued to ask, "Yushi, other than fruit wine, do you know how to brew other wines?" Han Yushi nodded and said, "Yes, my mother also taught me how to brew white wine and sake. These include Ingzhou's Fushui, Wuqing's Ruoxia, Hezhong's Mulberry, Yuzhou's Ichuan, Xingyang's Tuku, Fuping's Shidonkan, Jiannan's Braised Spring, Hedong's Qianyi Grape, Lingnan's Yunqi Baoyuo, Yiqing's Jioi, Xuanyang's Yishui, Cheese Lu Wine, and so on." Han Yushi counted with her fingers and listed all the wines she knew how to brew. Li Zixuan was dumbfounded. Was that even possible? Yushi, how did your mother make so many kinds of wine?" Han Yushi thought for a moment and said, "I heard from my mother that my grandfather, Duke Daoling, was the most famous winemaker in the former Sui dynasty when he was alive. Even Minister Wei Xuanqing of my dynasty praised his winemaking skills. My mother learned her winemaking skills from my grandfather." Li Zixuan asked curiously, "Who is Wei Xuanqing? Is he very knowledgeable about winemaking?" Han Yushi widened her eyes and said in disbelief, "Young master, don't tell me you don't even know Minister Left Prime Minister Wei Zheng?" "Huh." Wei Xuanqing turned out to be Wei Zheng. Li Zixuan had heard in his previous life that Wei Zheng was not only a straightforward minister, but also a master winemaker. He did not expect Han Yushi's grandfather's winemaking skills to be above Wei Zheng's. It was really a surprise. Cough, cough. Who doesn't know about Wei Xuanqing and Minister Wei? I was just testing you. Li Zixuan casually made up a story. He did not care whether Han Yushi believed him or not, and continued to ask, "Yushi, why didn't you make wine to sell before?" Han Yushi said sadly, "The Han village did not have enough food left over these years. How could we have extra food to make wine? Li Zishuan patted his head. So that was the reason. Yushi, do you know why I bought the Han village's fruit wine at such a high price? Han Yushi said gratefully. Yushi knows that young master is helping the Han village. Those fruit wines are actually not worth that much money. Li Zishuan shook his head and said, although I have the intention of helping the Han village, it is not entirely because of this. When I was at Mount Longhu, I saw my master often drinking a kind of brightly colored wine. My master said that it was a kind of mixed wine invented by the people of the Abbasid Caliphate. After drinking it a few times, my master felt that the taste was very special, so he figured out the recipe and brewed it himself. There is a very important ingredient in this recipe, and that is the fruit wine. Yushi, the fruit wine that you make can be considered to be of the highest quality among fruit wines. It is the most ideal ingredient to make this kind of mixed wine. That is why I bought your fruit wine at such a high price. I thought that after buying it, I would find a wine master to make this kind of mixed wine. It will definitely sell well in the future. When talking about what she was best at, Han Yushi was also very interested. She asked curiously, young master, what is the name of this wine? Is it really that good? I heard from my master that this is called a cocktail. As for whether it is good or not, I don't know how to taste wine, so I don't know. But my master has tasted all kinds of good wine in the world, and in the end, he only has a soft spot for this cocktail. I think that the taste of this wine should not be bad. Li Zishuan continued to use his master as a shield. That's right, Li Zishuan wanted to make a cocktail. In Li Zishuan's previous life, he and his uncle had watched a movie about a plane crash, but he forgot the specific name. In the movie, a black captain wanted to drink a cocktail on the plane. In the end, there was no cocktail, so he added alcohol into the fruit juice and drank it as a cocktail. One day, his uncle was eating at his house and suddenly remembered this scene. He added the same amount of Huiyuan 100% orange juice in a half a glass of whiskey. In the end, he watched his uncle drink it to his heart's content. Later, out of curiosity, he also went online to look up the method of making cocktails. Cocktails were generally made with rum, tequila, vodka, whiskey, and other spirits as the base, and fruit juice, egg white, milk, sugar, and other auxiliary ingredients, stirred or shaken. Finally, lemon slices, fruit, or mint leaves could be used as decorations. He could directly use the existing white wine from the Tang Dynasty to distill it. The fruit juice could be replaced with the fruit wine brewed by Han Yushi. The effect should be better. After mixing it, he added some ice cubes. In the hot summer, Li Zishuan believed that no wine lover could resist this temptation. As for how to obtain the ice cubes, Li Zishuan said that it was such a simple question that any transmigrator would know. However, he had to think of a way to let his father buy a saltpeter mine first. Otherwise, when everyone reacted, the price of saltpeter would definitely be expensive. At that time, when he thought about a group of Tang people drinking cocktails, this scene was quite interesting. When Han Yushi heard Li Zishuan say that the cocktail was so good, she couldn't help but eagerly say, then, young master, can you let Yushi try to make this cocktail? Li Zishuan was a little embarrassed. It wasn't that he was unwilling, but he couldn't bear to. If he let Han Yushi make the cocktail, she would definitely try a lot of wine. He was afraid that Han Yushi would get drunk. Han Yushi saw that the young master was embarrassed and thought that the young master didn't want to teach her the recipe. For a moment, a trace of sadness flashed in her eyes. She quickly said, I'm sorry, young master. Yushi was rash. When Li Zishuan saw her sad face, how could he not know that she misunderstood? He quickly explained, Yushi, don't misunderstand. It's not that I don't want you to try it. I'm just worried that you will taste too much wine when you mix the cocktail and get drunk. When Han Yushi heard that, it turned out that she misunderstood. Her face turned from sadness to joy and said embarrassedly, young master, you don't have to worry about this. Yushi has a special physique. No matter how much wine I drink since I was young, I won't get drunk. My father and I don't know what's going on. Li Zishuan was stunned. There was such a thing? He had seen it on the internet in his previous life. There was a kind of person who was born to not get drunk even after 1,000 cups. He didn't expect to meet such a strange person in the Tang Dynasty. Yushi, is what you said true? Li Zishuan still couldn't believe it. Of course it's true. Young master, you can ask my father if you don't believe me. There's no need. I believe. Then there's no problem. Yushi, you're also a master brewer. I'll copy the recipe for you later. As for the ratio of the various ingredients, you can slowly try it. When you return to the Han village this time, tell your father that when I'm done with some things, you can come to Chong and to help me mix the wine. I'm representing my father to try to hire you as the bartender of our Zuetian restaurant. How about a monthly salary of 10 strings of coins? Teaching this recipe to Han Yushi was more reassuring than teaching it to others. Li Zishuan really didn't expect this matter to go so smoothly. Han Yushi was very surprised when she heard this. She didn't expect that she could finally help the young master. She quickly said, "Young master, you've helped the Han village so much. How can Yushi ask for a salary?" Yushi is already very happy to be able to help the young master mix the wine. Li Zishuan insisted, "This monthly salary is what you deserve. You have to take it. If you don't want it, I won't help the Han village in the future." Han Yushi could only nod her head reluctantly. Chapter 56. After dinner, Li Zishuan looked at his father and said, "Dad, come to the study. I have something to talk to you about." During the day, he saw that Yin Xiaoning was straightforward and had a deep understanding of machinery. That was why he gave him 10% of the shares and pulled him into the company. However, he knew nothing about Yin Xiaoning's family situation. Although he believed that Yin Xiaoning's character was not like a fickle villain, Li Zishuan still wanted to know more about Yin Xiaoning's family. Recently, the cooking at home had been getting better and better. Old man Li was about to sit on a stool and drink a cup of tea after finishing his meal when he heard that his son was looking for him. He was about to say, "You brat, why are you looking for me?" Who knew that after Li Zishuan finished speaking, he didn't wait for his reply and went straight to the study. It turned out that what this kid said just now was not a discussion, but a notice. Father Li was so angry that he almost fainted. At this point, what else could he say? Madam was still glaring at him, so Father Li could only follow him unhappily. Li Zishuan, on the other hand, didn't mean what his father thought. He was just lost in thought for a moment. It was Father Li who thought too much. In the study, Li Zishuan saw that his father had sat down and asked directly, "Dad, do you know Yin Lai, Minister Yin?" Father Li was puzzled. "Of course I've heard of the Minister of Works of the Tang Empire. Why are you asking this? Did you offend someone from his family?" He was still a little worried. "No, Dad, what are you thinking? Am I the kind of person who likes to stir up trouble? It's mainly because the Crown Prince brought Minister Yan's son, Yin Xiaoning, over today to talk to me about the wonderful pavilion. I saw that Yin Xiaoning was straightforward and was quite proficient in machinery, so I gave him 10% of the shares and pulled him into the wonderful pavilion." Father Li was a little surprised when he heard this. A light flashed through his eyes. "Xian, is your wonderful pavilion really that promising? Why do so many people think highly of him?" He had originally thought that this strange interest pavilion was just something his son was doing for fun, so he didn't think much of it. Who knew that the Crown Prince would want to invest? And now the son of the Minister of Works? Old Man Li, who had been in business for many years, immediately smelled a business opportunity. Could there really be a great opportunity here? Li Zishuan said proudly, "Of course, father. My wonderful taste pavilion is going to dominate the Tang Empire in the future. Anyone with foresight can see the bright future of the wonderful taste pavilion. I don't care about my son showing off." Li Jingma pondered for a while, then looked at Li Zishuan and said, "Xian, if you want to make this shop bigger and stronger, you can't do it without a lot of money. How about I give you 3,000 strings of cash for 20% of your Strange Taste Pavilion shares?" Li Jingma thought about the chicken that his son had eaten. Now, he had high hopes for his Strange Interest Pavilion and wanted to get a share of the profits. When Li Zishuan heard this, he immediately shook his head like a rattle drum. "Father, this Strange Interest Pavilion is my first business. I don't have many shares in my hands. Besides, we are a family. Why should we be so clear about it? This little rascal." Old Man Li could only stare at him angrily. "Father, I'm still talking about business with you. What do you think of the Yin family? There won't be any problems if I cooperate with Yin shouting, right? Seeing that his father was leading him astray, Li Zishuan quickly changed the topic. Li Jingma thought about it seriously, then said slowly, I've heard of Minister Yin. Minister Yin came from an engineering family. He was a master craftsman in the 9th year of Wuda and was promoted to the Minister of Works this year. Minister Yin is an upright person with superb skills. He has great attainments in architecture, craftsmanship, and painting. He can be considered a master of his generation. The current Chang and city of the Tang Empire was planned and designed by Minister Yin. His younger brother, Yin Libin, is a master craftsman. He is very good at calligraphy and painting. As for his son, Yin Xiaoning, I don't know much about him. However, the Yin family is very strict and is a true family of gentlemen. If you cooperate with Yin Xiaoning, there will only be benefits and no disadvantages. When Li Zishuan heard that Yin Libin was Yin Li's younger brother, he was shocked and opened his mouth wide. He might not have heard of Yin Li, but who didn't know of Yin Libin's name in his previous life? He was a great painter in the Tang Dynasty. His walking carriage painting and portraits of past emperors were treasures passed down from generation to generation. Li Zishuan didn't expect the friend he just made today to have such an amazing family background. He swallowed his saliva and said, Well, since father said so, then I can rest assured. After that, he turned to go back to his room to sleep. Don't you want to consider father's suggestion? That's 3,000 strings of cash. Old man Li didn't give up on the idea of getting a share and shouted from behind. Li Zishuan hurriedly quickened his steps and ran away. Although his family had a lot of money, it was more comfortable for him to spend his own money. Strange interest pavilion's embryonic form had been formed, and he didn't lack funds now. He was just waiting for this young eagle to take off. This stinking brat, West Courtyard. Li Zishuan laid on his bed and couldn't help but think of the strange scene in his mind when he was drawing during the day. Although he could rely on the memories of his previous life to imagine the three-dimensional structure of the ball bearing in his mind, it was only a vague illusion and not a real thing. However, the ball bearing in his mind during the day was real and clear as if there was a real ball bearing in front of his eyes. At that time, he even felt that he could make it rotate 360 degrees at will. As a young man from the 21st century, Li Zishuan didn't believe in ghosts and gods. However, he couldn't explain what happened during the day, so he could only try again. At that moment, Li Zishuan closed his eyes and began to recall the structure of the ball bearing. Sure enough, a realistic three-dimensional model immediately appeared in his mind. At that moment, there was no one to disturb him, so Li Zishuan could finally relax and boldly observe. It would be great if I could enlarge it. Li Zishuan saw that the structure of the ball bearing was too small and couldn't be seen clearly. He felt that it was a fly in the ointment. As if it had heard his thoughts, the model in his mind began to enlarge rapidly, and all the minute structures on it could be seen clearly. Li Zishuan was so shocked that his mouth opened wide. How the F***CK could this work? That scared me to death. Since it can be enlarged, can it be rotated? Li Zishuan silently thought about the rotation in his mind. Who knew that the model would also start to rotate? What the F***CK? Did my brain become a computer? This scene was very familiar to Li Zishuan. This was because in his previous life, when he used a drawing software on his computer to draw a 3D model of some parts or machines, those drawings could be enlarged or rotated 360 degrees with the help of the mouse. Right now, it was as if there was this software in his brain. What the hell was this? Li Zishuan's heart had a trace of fear of the unknown, but also a trace of excitement. He opened his eyes and looked around. After confirming that he was alone in the room, he closed his eyes again. Since the ball bearing works, can I change it to something else? Li Zishuan was eager to try. Let's try a bicycle? Li Zishuan's mind moved, and a 3D model of an unbranded bicycle appeared in his mind. The outline of every part of the bicycle and every assembly could be seen clearly. Li Zishuan could even see every grain on the tires. Could this be my golden finger? I can recreate a 3D model of a modern object in my mind? As if he had found a new toy, Li Zishuan was having a lot of fun. Cylinders, water wheels, motorcycles, etc. flashed through his mind. After a while, Li Zixuan became a little arrogant. He wanted to create a big treasure. Why don't I try a tank? Li Zixuan's mind moved, and a huge armored tank appeared in his mind. But it did not last long. In less than 2 seconds, the tank disappeared. Immediately after, there was a sharp pain in his mind. It was not physical pain, but mental pain. Li Zixuan had never experienced this kind of pain before. He could not help but groan and pass out. Chapter 57. In the study of the Yin residence. A lean and elegant old man stared at the drawing on the table for a long time without saying a word. After a long time, the old man finally turned around and said to the young man in front of him, "Ninger, this drawing method and the ball bearing were invented by Li Zixuan?" Yin shouting nodded, "Yes, father." This old man was the Minister of Works, Yin lied. The drawing on the table was exactly the same as what Li Zixuan drew during the day. It turned out that Yin Shouting used his memory to copy the drawing that Li Zixuan drew during the day. A light flashed in Yin Li's eyes as he praised, "I have never seen such a drawing method before, but it is indeed very convenient and worth popularizing. Furthermore, this ball bearing is truly a genius creation, but it's a pity that it's difficult to manufacture. I don't know who his teacher is, but his knowledge of machinery is so profound. I'm afraid he has already caught up to you, Ning. He is a promising talent. Ning, you should invite him back to the manor some other day and test him for father. If he is really talented, this old man will ask His Majesty to give him an official position in the Imperial Censorate." Yin Shouting smiled bitterly. "Father, I also told Li Zixuan today, but he said he wants to be filial at home and doesn't want to be an official right now." Yin Li glared and said angrily, "Nonsense! With such talent, how can he not work for the country? Call that brat over some other day, and I will talk to him. At such a young age, he is already not thinking about improving himself. How ridiculous." The next day, before dawn, Li Zixuan woke up. He woke up in pain. He felt as if there were thousands of needles stabbing into his brain. Li Zixuan felt that it would be better if he just fainted, but this kind of thing couldn't be fainted so easily. Li Zixuan held his head in pain. His face was ferocious and his veins were bulging. Large beads of sweat rolled down his forehead and down his back. Waves of piercing pain came from the depths of his soul, causing Li Zixuan to groan uncontrollably. But at this time, it was usually the time when people were sleeping soundly. Xiaohe and Xiaoxi were still sleeping soundly in the room outside. Am I going to die the moment I transmigrated to the Tang Dynasty? Wasn't I just thinking about the tank? You damned heavens! You want to kill yours truly the moment yours truly found out that he had a cheat as well? This Goldfinger doesn't even have a F***king instruction manual. I don't even know if I can use it for a treasure like a tank." Li Zixuan's heart flashed with anger and unwillingness. He had just discovered that he had a cheat, but he did not expect that he would lose his life because he did not use it properly. How can he blame me for this? This young master doesn't know what to use and what not to use. Just as Li Zixuan felt that his head was about to explode, there was a slight fluctuation in his dantian. Then, there was a cooling sensation in his mind, which slightly relieved Li Zixuan's pain. Li Zixuan was shocked. He suddenly remembered that he was severely injured at Zhongnan Mountains. Sun Simiao had said that he would need to rest for a month to recover, but he had used the Taishan Sutra and recovered more than half of his injuries in a day. This meant that the Taishan Sutra was very useful for healing injuries. But this time, it seemed to be a mental injury. He did not know if the Taishan Sutra would work. "Forget it, I don't care anymore. I'll just treat it as a last resort. If I don't take any measures, I'll probably die from the pain or become mentally disabled." Li Zixuan endured the pain in his mind and sat up. He crossed his legs on the bed and used all his strength to activate the 5th level of the Taishan Sutra. At this moment, there was a warm feeling in his dantian, but it was of no use. His mind was still in extreme pain. Li Zixuan's face hardened. "I don't believe it. I'll fight you to the death today." Forcing himself to be alert, Li Zixuan planned to go all the way. Regardless of the pain in his mind, He crazily activated the Taishan Sutra again and again. He did not know how many times he had activated it. The true energy in Li Zixuan's body was constantly being compressed. His body was completely soaked in sweat, and water could be wrung out of his clothes. At this moment, his face was extremely pale, and he was in extreme pain. His hard work paid off. The quantitative change finally led to a qualitative change. Li Zixuan felt as if a trace of the compressed true qi had unexpectedly turned into a drop of liquid. He only heard a clear ding-dong sound. His previously incomparably violent mind immediately calmed down when he heard this clear sound. At this moment, Li Zixuan's mind felt extremely clear. It was as if the dry and cracked earth had welcomed the moisture of rain. He was so comfortable that he wanted to shout. Could it be that my Taishan Sutra has broken through to the 6th level? This was Li Zixuan's first reaction. After a careful examination, he found that the Taishan Sutra was still at the 5th level. However, it seemed to be closer to the 6th level than before. In other words, it would not take long for him to become a master. But why did the pain in his mind disappear? Could it be that the Taishan Sutra could not only heal physical injuries, but also mental injuries? Li Zixuan could not find any other explanation. He could only think of it this way. But why did he almost kill himself when he experimented with the tank last night? Was it because the tank was too big and its structure too complicated? Could it be that his mind could not handle such a large amount of information? Should he try again? Li Zixuan was courting death. Li Zixuan had no other choice but to slowly try it himself. In the time travel novels he had read in his previous life, the main character would usually receive a system grandpa to explain how to use the gold finger. However, this gold finger of his did not even have a manual. He could only rely on himself to figure it out. Li Zixuan immediately thought of small objects such as screws. Slowly, the things in his mind became bigger and more complicated. It was only when he thought of the cars in his previous life that Li Zixuan felt a sharp pain in his mind. Li Zixuan knew that this should be his limit. He immediately stopped thinking. He did not want to continue the painful feeling from before. Li Zixuan was now sure that this gold finger of his should be able to construct a three-dimensional model of some industrial machinery and parts in his mind. Then, he could turn these models into detailed blueprints through his own hands. However, this gold finger seemed to have limitations on the size and complexity of the object. With his current ability, he could barely construct complex industrial products like cars. However, Li Zixuan was already very satisfied with this. Although he had studied mechanical design in his previous life, it did not mean that he could draw a three-dimensional model of some of the mechanical structures in his previous life. He believed that no one would be so free as to memorize all the mechanical structures in their mind. Since this Taishan Sutra could heal mental injuries, would it be able to strengthen his mental strength? If his mental strength was strengthened, would he be able to construct more complex objects? Ever since he had transmigrated into this body, Li Zixuan clearly felt that his memory was much better than in his previous life. Previously, Li Zixuan had thought that this was a benefit that all transmigrators had. However, now that he thought about it, this did not seem to be the case. It should be that the Taishan Sutra could not only strengthen his body, but also his mental strength. The more Li Zixuan thought about it, the more he felt that his speculation was extremely close to the correct answer. If this was really the case, then when the Taishan Sutra broke through to a higher level in the future, would it not mean that he would be able to construct larger and more complex machine models in his mind? Thinking of this, Li Zixuan was a little excited. However, at the same time, he felt that this gold finger of his was a bit of a scam. If the body that he had transmigrated into had not learned the Taishan Sutra, which was an inner force skill that could not only strengthen the body, but also the mind, then wouldn't that mean that his gold finger would be useless? It would probably be difficult to even construct a screw model in his mind. Thinking of this gold finger was too much of a scam. It even needed to be complemented by internal strength. It seemed that in the future, other than improving his skills, there would be another purpose for training, and that would be to activate a more powerful gold finger. Sigh, since the sun is not up yet, Let's train for a while more. The miserable Li Zixuan had turned into a training machine again. Chapter 58. Early in the morning, Li Zixuan heard the drums of dawn being beaten outside. He knew that a new day had begun. Having narrowly escaped death last night, Li Zixuan was covered in sweat. At this moment, his body was sticky and uncomfortable. He got up and walked out of the inner room, wanting to ask Xiao he to go to the kitchen and have someone boil some hot water. "Young master, you woke up so early today?" Outside the room, Xiao he saw that the young master actually woke up as soon as the morning drum sounded. She couldn't help but be surprised. Facing Xiao he's surprised gaze, Li Zixuan felt a little embarrassed. Now, everyone in the family knew that he was a lazy person. "Cough, Xiao he, tell the kitchen to boil some water for me. I want to take a bath." After saying that, he quickly went back to his room. "Yes, young master." Xiao he was a little confused. Didn't the young master just take a bath last night? Why do you want to take a bath now? The young master really liked to be clean now. In the early Qin dynasty, the ancient people washed their hair every 3 days and took a bath every 5 days. In the Han dynasty, there was even a break. The officials worked 5 days and took a day off. In the Tang dynasty, it was changed from 5 days to 10 days. It was called a break day. After Li Zixuan transmigrated, he didn't care about those rules. He basically took a bath once a day. Mrs. Li naturally wouldn't say anything. It was just a waste of firewood money. The Li family had a big business and didn't care about these things. Xiao he and Xiao she were already used to the young master's actions of taking a bath every day. Xiao he didn't expect that the young master would take a bath every other night. Seeing that the young master went back to his room, she didn't ask and went straight to the kitchen to pass the order. After taking a bath, Li Zixuan felt refreshed and planned to go to the front hall. Xiao he quickly went in to help Li Zixuan tidy up the bed. She saw that the bed was wet. Did the young master wet the bed? No wonder the young master wanted to take a bath so early in the morning. Xiao he instantly blushed and screamed, "Ah!" She ran out. Li Zixuan hadn't gone far when he heard the girl scream. He quickly walked back and thought, "What's in my room? Why is this girl so scared? I didn't do anything shameful last night, did I? What are you shouting for? What's wrong? Is there a ghost inside?" Li Zixuan blocked Xiao he's way. Xiao he couldn't stop in time and bumped into his arms. Xiao he jumped far away as if she had been electrocuted. She lowered her head and blushed, not daring to speak. She was afraid that if she told the truth, her young master would fly into a rage and sell her out. Li Zixuan saw Xiao he blushing, lowering her head and not speaking. He was a little confused and wondered, "Xiao he, what's wrong with you? Say something. Are you counting ants here?" Xiao he whispered, "Then I'll tell you." "Young master, you can't blame me. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Just tell me what it is." Xiao he then stuttered, Young master, did you do that last night? What did I do wrong? Why are you speaking in such a strange way? Make it clear." Xiao he hesitated for a long time before she said hesitantly, "It's that, young master, did you wet the bed last night? I saw that your bed was wet." Damn it. Li Zixuan instantly fell as if he had been struck by 18 bolts of heavenly lightning. That should have been because of the problem with his body last night, and the pain caused him to sweat uncontrollably. In the end, this girl thought that it was because he wet the bed. If this were to spread out, wouldn't this young master's reputation be ruined? Li Zixuan patted the girl's forehead angrily and said, "What are you thinking? It's sweat. You're so young. Why don't you think about it?" Xiao he obviously didn't believe him. How could anyone sweat so much? The young master must be embarrassed and deliberately covered it up. So she said, "Young master, you're right. It's sweat. I will never tell anyone." Li Zixuan could see that the girl didn't mean what she said. He said angrily, "It's really sweat. Something went wrong during my practice last night. That's why I sweated so much. If you don't believe me, you can smell it. I'm so old. Can't you tell sweat from urine?" Xiao he blushed when she heard the young master's straightforward and vulgar words. She quickly ran away and said, "I won't smell it. Young master, don't hit me. I won't tell anyone." Li Zixuan was speechless. He forcibly grabbed Xiao he and took her into the bedroom. Well, don't misunderstand. Our protagonist didn't do anything embarrassing. He just wanted Xiaohe to know that the bed was indeed sweat. This was related to his reputation for the rest of his life. Li Zixuan had to be serious with this little girl. Seeing that the little girl finally believed him, Li Zixuan was relieved. He went to the front yard to have breakfast with his parents, little sister, and Han Yushi. After breakfast, Li Zixuan and Han Yushi went to Mingyue Xian to see if Iron Egg's injury had recovered. Iron Egg had been staying at the young master's house these days. He had good food and drinks. There were also maids to take care of him. The young master often came to visit him. Even Madame Li came to visit him many times. Iron Egg was very grateful for these, but he wasn't happy. Since he was almost killed by Chao Xiaoyan last time, Iron Egg's desire to become stronger didn't disappear. Instead, it became stronger and stronger. He was like a tiger in his heart, ready to attack. Yesterday, when a young master came to visit him, Iron Egg wanted to tell the young master about it. But when the words came to his mouth, he didn't know how to say it. This morning, Iron Egg felt that his injury didn't hurt anymore. He tried to get out of bed. After a while, he felt that walking shouldn't be a problem. Iron Egg went to the back garden of Mingyue Xian alone. He looked at the koi fish in the pond and sat on a rock beside it in a daze. His mind kept replaying the scene of being bullied by Lu Haojian and being beaten by Chao Xiaoyan. The first time, if the young master didn't come in time, Lan'er would have been bullied. The second time, if he didn't make a prompt decision, his sister would have suffered misfortune. Even so, he was almost beaten to death. Fortunately, his sister was fine. Otherwise, Iron Egg would feel guilty for the rest of his life. Although the two incidents didn't cause any serious consequences, there was a lot of luck involved. Iron Egg didn't want to be so lucky for the rest of his life. Iron Egg used to be a mischievous brat in the Han village. Usually, he would dig out bird nests, play in mud, and fight grasshoppers with Denyo and the others. Children at this age were carefree because even if something happened, their parents would help them shoulder the burden. But these two incidents made Iron Egg realize that the outside world wasn't beautiful. His father couldn't be by his side all the time and shelter him from the wind and rain. Besides, his father would grow old one day. He couldn't rely on his father for the rest of his life. He wanted to become strong. He wanted to be as strong as the young master. That way, he could protect his sister and the people who cared about him, such as Lan'er. He estimated that he and his sister would be leaving the young master's house in the next 2 days. No matter what, he had to beg the young master to teach him martial arts. Whether the young master agreed or not, he had to try. Iron Egg kept encouraging himself in his heart. He had to perform well and be sincere so that the young master would accept him. At this moment, voices came from the entrance of Mingyue Xian. Iron Egg walked out of the garden and saw that the young master and his sister had come together. He quickly went to greet them. "Young master, you're here." "Iron Egg, why are you out of bed?" Li Zixuan saw Iron Egg walk over and was shocked. Iron Egg smiled and said, "Young master, Iron Egg's injuries are almost healed. He can barely walk." "Oh, that's good. Iron Egg, you were injured so badly that I was worried sick." Seeing that Iron Egg's injuries were finally healed, Li Zixuan was happy. "Young master, since Iron Egg's injuries are healed, I'll go back with Iron Egg today. My father hasn't seen Iron Egg for a few days. He must be worried sick." Although she didn't want to leave, Iron Egg's injuries were healed. There was no reason for them to continue living here. Han Yushi said goodbye to Li Zixuan. Iron Egg heard his sister say this and felt a little nervous. He still hadn't told the young master about his situation. Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, "There's no rush. Iron Egg's injuries are just healed. Let him rest for another day. I'll go back with you tomorrow. I'm going to the Han village to find your father." Thinking about it, her father should have raised enough money. She had to go to the Han village to find Han Lijing as soon as possible to finalize the matter of raising chickens. After calculating how many chickens the village could raise, they could then purchase the chicken seedlings. Since the young master said so, Han Yushi could only nod. Iron Egg heard this and breathed a sigh of relief. He secretly thought that he should hurry up. Taking a deep breath, Iron Egg felt that he couldn't wait any longer. He carefully said, "Young master, Iron Egg has something to tell you." "Oh, what's the matter with Iron Egg?" Li Zixuan was a little curious. He had always admired this child. He planned to go to the Han village to talk to Han Lijing and see if he could keep Iron Egg by his side. At this moment, Iron Egg resisted the nervousness in his heart and the pain in his body. With a plop sound, he knelt in front of Lisa Schwan. Iron Egg knew that he didn't have money or ability. He didn't have anything to show. He could only follow the storytellers in the restaurants and use his sincerity to move the young master. Lisa Schwan and Han Yushi were shocked by this kneeling. Why couldn't this child talk nicely? Why did he have to kneel? Lisa Schwan wanted to pull Iron Egg up, but Iron Egg hurriedly waved his hand to stop him. Young master, Iron Egg wants to be your disciple. I beg you to teach me martial arts. Iron Egg wants to become strong. He wants to protect my sister and everyone who cares about Iron Egg from harm. I beg you, young master, to agree. Iron Egg knows that he doesn't have money or ability, but Iron Egg will remember young master's kindness for the rest of his life. After saying this, he was about to kowtow. This time, Lisa Schwan ignored Iron Egg's attempts to stop him and quickly pulled Iron Egg up. This child must have heard too many stories. Even if he wanted to be his disciple, he didn't need to kneel and kowtow. Lisa Schwan was also shocked by Iron Egg's words. Was this still the shy brat he saw before? After all, Iron Egg was only 6 or 7 years old. It seemed that after experiencing these two things, Iron Egg had matured a lot. Sure enough, setbacks were a catalyst for a person to mature quickly. Han Yushi was also a little surprised by her brother's actions. When she heard Iron Egg's words, she was a little touched. She couldn't help but think of the scene where Iron Egg stopped Chao Xiaoyan regardless of the danger and let her go first. Han Yushi couldn't help but tear up. Her brother had grown up. Han Yushi was both touched and gratified. She looked at Lisa Schwan and wondered if the young master would agree. Chapter 59. After being pulled up by Lisa Schwan, Iron Egg's eyes were still fixed on Lisa Schwan. He really hoped that the young master would accept him. Feeling the deep pleading in Iron Egg's eyes and recalling the words of Iron Egg, Lisa Schwan could not help but feel touched. This child was only 6 or 7 years old. It was not that he could not accept him as a disciple, but there were some things that had to be made clear in advance. Lisa Schwan turned around and put his hands behind his back. After thinking for a while, he said, Iron Egg, you risked your life to save law and order. I have always been grateful to you. But if you want to be my disciple, just to learn martial arts and not be bullied, I can't accept you. Iron Egg asked anxiously, why, young master? Han Yushi also looked at Lisa Schwan curiously. She heard the young master's words. It seemed that Iron Egg did have a chance. Lisa Schwan said slowly, heroes use martial arts to break the rules. Iron Egg, if you only focus on learning martial arts and pursue power without paying attention to self-cultivation, sooner or later you will go astray and bully the weak with your martial arts. Iron Egg hurriedly promised, young master, Iron Egg will not do that kind of thing. Please believe in Iron Egg. Iron Egg only wants to learn martial arts and not be bullied. Lisa Schwan shook his head. At the end of the day, Bruiser still had the temperament of a child. Once a person gained power, their way of thinking would change. When the time came, they would be slightly instigated by a villain, and it would be easy for them to go astray. Bruiser's thinking was still too simple. Iron Egg, I can accept you as my disciple and teach you martial arts, but I will also teach you other things to help you cultivate your mind. You must pay equal attention to them. If your mind is not stable, how can you practice martial arts? Besides, I don't want you to become a brute who only knows martial arts. Many things can't be solved by martial arts alone. I hope you can become a useful person to the Tang Empire. If I find out that you only know how to practice martial arts and neglect the cultivation of the heart, then I will expel you from the sect. Are you still willing? With the arrival of Zhang Guan's golden age, the world would gradually become peaceful. Most of the time, one could not rely only on martial strength and bravery to fight. In times of war, scholars were useless. However, in times of peace, a martial artist was of little use. Therefore, Lisa Schwan didn't want Iron Egg to only learn martial arts. He wanted to teach Iron Egg some other things so that he could survive in peaceful times. As for how much Iron Egg could learn, that would depend on his luck. After hearing this, Han Yushi's eyes lit up. She didn't expect the young master to be so considerate and consider so much for Iron Egg. She hurriedly pushed Iron Egg, indicating that he should quickly accept her as his disciple. Iron Egg was overjoyed when he heard that Li Zishuan could accept him as his disciple. However, after Li Zishuan said those principles, he didn't fully understand them. However, when he saw his sister urging him, he no longer hesitated and knelt in front of Li Zishuan again. Young master, Iron Egg agrees to cultivate the heart and practice martial arts with you. I beg you to accept Iron Egg as your disciple. Li Zishuan didn't stop him this time. He nodded and said, well, Iron Egg, go back and tell your father. If your father agrees, I will officially accept you as my disciple. That's great. My father will definitely agree. Thank you, young master. Finally hearing a definite answer, Iron Egg jumped up excitedly. Li Zishuan found it a little funny that he was still a child. He originally wanted to keep Iron Egg by his side and let him learn something. This child's temperament wasn't bad at all. Now that he unexpectedly accepted Iron Egg as his disciple, it didn't seem too bad. He just didn't know how good this child's potential was. After this trip to the Han village, he would bring Iron Egg by his side and let him start learning. Thank you, young master. Han Yushi was also happy for her brother. Iron Egg could learn something by the young master's side. It was better than playing in the mud in the countryside. Therefore, Han Yushi was very grateful to Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said with a smile, this is Iron Egg's own opportunity. Yushi, you don't have to thank me. After dinner, seeing that Han Yushi and Iron Egg had returned to Mingyue Xian and Lana had also returned to the backyard, Li Zishuan told his parents about accepting Iron Egg as his disciple. Very good. Iron Egg is a clever and brave child. I quite like him. When Madame Li heard this, she smiled and was the first to express her support. Housekeeper Wang had told her about how Lana was almost bullied in the Han village. Madame Li, who had always been kind, was immediately furious. When she heard that Han Lijing's son, Iron Egg, had risked his life to protect Lana, Madame Li was very surprised that this child was so brave at such a young age. When she heard that her son wanted to accept him as his disciple, she naturally agreed. Moreover, Madame Li had her own little plan. If her son accepted Iron Egg as his disciple, then his relationship with Han Yushi would naturally become closer. She might even be able to hold a grandson soon. Old Man Li frowned. He felt that his son couldn't even control himself. So how could he teach a disciple? He was simply leading the child astray. However, since his wife had already agreed, he couldn't say otherwise. He could only say, Xian, since you've become Iron Egg's master now, then you have to act like a master in the future. Don't lead the child astray, understand? Li Zishuan could only agree gloomily. That's right, father. How's the nibbling chicken from the Drunken Immortal restaurant selling recently? Are there any other restaurants that imitate the nibbling chicken? Old Man Li frowned and felt a little surprised. He asked, Xian, how did you know that there are restaurants that imitate the nibbling chicken? It seemed that he had guessed correctly. As expected, he still couldn't underestimate the wisdom of the ancients. Li Zishuan sighed and said, I guessed, but I didn't expect it to be so. Father, then are the sales of our nibbling chicken not as good as before? Li Jima nodded and said, a few days ago, the Yunxi restaurant in the East City also released their nibbling chicken. Although the taste is a little different from our Drunken Immortal restaurants, their price is cheaper. One serving is only 700 copper coins. Recently, the sales of our nibbling chicken have dropped by about 30%, and it's still continuing to drop. Then, father, tell shopkeeper Lu to give some discounts to the Drunken Immortal restaurant's nibbling chicken. For example, every month, they'll sell it at half price or something. In any case, our cost is low and the taste is good. We're not afraid of a price war with them. Old Man Li thought about it and nodded in agreement. That's also a good idea. But Xian, why do you care so much about the sales of the nibbling chicken? Even if the Drunken Immortal restaurant doesn't have the nibbling chicken, their business has always been very good. Although the nibbling chicken was very profitable, Li Jingma's family business was big, so he didn't care too much about it. Lisa Schwan said matter-of-factly. Father, people fight for their dignity, and Buddha fights for an incense stick. This nibbling chicken was invented by us. Why should we let these imitators earn more than us? Father, first tell shopkeeper Lu to lower the price for a while. After I go to the Han village and settle the matter of raising chickens, I'll make something good for the drunken immortal restaurant. When the time comes, I'll see how the Yunshi restaurant will compete with us. Lisa Schwan obviously couldn't bear to let knockoff's nibbling chicken surpass the authentic one. His father didn't care about this bit of money, but he did. Hearing that his son was going to make something new, Li Jingma was curious and asked, Shanna, what are you going to make? Father will naturally find out in the future. That's right. Father, how's the preparation of the 300,000 strings of string of money? Old Manly glared at him and said, Naturally, there's no problem. The funds will all be in place by tomorrow. When the time comes, I'll send the money to the family storehouse. I'll give you the key. Then thank you, Father. Your son will go to the Han village tomorrow and explain the matter of raising chickens to the villagers. Then we'll start buying the chicken seedlings. This autumn harvest, Father, you must remember to send people to buy grain. Yes, Father knows. You just have to take care of your own matters. You're not young anymore. It's time for you to learn how to do some things. This matter can be considered a test for you. Lisa Schwan nodded and said solemnly, Your son understands the importance of this matter. I won't mess it up. Chapter 60. The next day, after breakfast, when Lisa Schwan saw that Tai Dan was walking more naturally and easily than yesterday, he knew that Tai Dan's injuries were more or less healed. He called Sam Bao over and asked him to hire a carriage to head to the Han family manor. But in his heart, he thought, after Yin Shouting finished making the roller bearings, I have to make a luxurious carriage for my family first. Otherwise, I have to hire a carriage every time I go out. How troublesome it is. As a rich second generation, it was not too much to ask for a luxurious carriage, right? After letting Iron Egg and Han Yushi get on the carriage, Lisa Schwan was embarrassed to go in the same carriage as Han Yushi. He could only ride the big white horse at home and follow the carriage to the Han village. Father, Iron Egg and I are back. As soon as they arrived at the door of the small courtyard of the Han family, Han Yushi jumped off the carriage, supported Iron Egg, and shouted into the courtyard. After being away from home for so many days, she was also a little homesick. Then she heard footsteps in the courtyard. Before the person arrived, the sound came first. Yushi, Iron Egg, you're back? Han Lijing walked out and saw that his son and daughter were back. There was a flash of surprise in his eyes. A few days ago, Lisa Schwan asked someone to send a letter to him, saying that Iron Egg was injured in Chong and City and was recuperating in the Li family. He had been very worried these days. Although he usually ordered his son around and didn't care about him at all, when he heard that his son was injured, Han Lijing couldn't help but worry. He had been feeling uneasy for the past few days. Now that he finally saw that his son was fine, he felt relieved. At this moment, Han Lijing caught a glimpse of Lisa Schwan standing to the side. He was shocked and interrupted his thoughts of talking to his son and daughter. He hurriedly went forward and said, Young master, you're here too, Lisa Schwan said apologetically. Uncle Han, this time Iron Egg and Yushi came to the city. It's my fault that I did not take good care of them and let Iron Egg get injured. I'm really sorry, Uncle Han. Han Lijing quickly waved his hand. Although he didn't study much, he could still distinguish right from wrong. It was too far-fetched to blame Lisa Schwan for this matter. Young master, please don't say that. You can't blame young master for this matter. Young master, thank you for taking care of Iron Egg after he was injured. Let's not just stand outside. Let's go in and talk. Uncle Han, other than sending Iron Egg Yushi home, I also have something to discuss with Uncle Han. They sat down in the room and chatted for a while before Lisa Schwan cut to the chase. Young master, if there's anything you need, please tell me. Han Lijing sat up straight and earnestly said, I don't dare to instruct you, but I have something to discuss with Uncle Han. Previously, when I was at my house, I found that Yushi's winemaking skills were very good, so I wanted her to help me make a new wine. The monthly salary is 10 strings of coins. I don't know if Uncle Han is willing. Han Lijing's eyes widened. 10 strings of coins. It was more than what he worked hard to earn in a year. He quickly shook his head and said, "Young master, you can't do that. It's our family's honor that Yushi can help you. Previously, young master has brought so many benefits to our family. You can't ask for such a high salary from young master." Li Zishuan said, "Uncle Han, what I want to discuss with you is not about money. I want to ask if you're willing to let Yushi help me make a new wine. As for the money, if Yushi is willing to help me, she deserves it. Once the new wine is made, the profit will be far greater than this small amount of money. Please don't refuse." When Han Lijing heard this, he finally thought of the crux of the problem. His daughter was still an unmarried daughter. Although the villagers would not be as particular as those wealthy families, if his daughter were to appear in public to help the young master make a wine, it would inevitably cause gossip. However, his family had received so many favors from the young master's family. Now that it was rare for him to be able to help the young master, it was really difficult to refuse. Han Lijing was also in a dilemma for a moment, so he might as well give the choice to his daughter. "Yushi, are you willing to help the young master make a wine? I respect your decision." Han Lijing's tone was somewhat solemn. When Han Yushi heard that she could help the young master, she was only excited and did not think so much. Now that she saw her father's solemn expression, she realized that things were not as simple as she thought. She was a girl. If she agreed to help the young master, she would definitely not be able to avoid getting along with him day and night. It would easily cause gossip. However, it was rare for her to have the opportunity to help the young master. She really did not want to refuse. Moreover, she did not hate working with the young master. She even had some faint expectations in her heart. Han Yushi gritted her teeth and said, "Father, I want to help the young master make a wine." Even though she knew that she should not do this, Han Yushi still could not bear to refuse the young master's request for help. "As long as I can help the young master, let others gossip if they want to," Han Yushi thought in her heart. Han Lijing sighed softly in his heart. Ever since Li Zishuan left the Han family manor last time, he realized that there was something wrong with his daughter. However, as a father, it was really difficult for him to speak about a girl's private matters. If only the child's mother was still alive. Sigh, he hoped that his daughter would not regret it in the end and would have a good ending. "Young master, since Yushi has agreed, then this old man has no objections." Li Zishuan did not think as much as the father and daughter. He was still in a mindset of a modern person. He did not think that there was anything wrong with letting Han Yushi help him make a wine. However, he also noticed that the atmosphere was a little strange. When he heard Han Lijing's words, he could only suppress the doubts in his heart and cup his hands to thank him. "Uncle Han, there is one more thing. Iron Egg told me yesterday that he wants to be my disciple and wants me to teach him martial arts. You are his father, so I thought that this kind of thing should only be done with your consent." This. Han Lijing was a little shocked. He secretly thought that Iron Egg, this stinky brat, even knew how to find someone to be his disciple. He looked at Iron Egg in surprise. At this time, Iron Egg had his head down and was counting ants. He was quite courageous when he wanted to be his disciple, but after that, being looked at by his father like this brat also felt a little embarrassed. "I heard that the young master also has a famous master. Iron Egg can be your disciple. It is his good fortune. As long as the young master does not think that this brat is stupid, of course I will agree." Han Lijing thought about it and said with some gratitude. His son's future following the young master was obviously better than playing in the mud in the countryside. Which father did not want his son to be successful? In the past, he could not even take care of his children's food and clothing. Naturally, he did not have the time to think about his son's future. Now that there was such a good opportunity, of course he would agree. Li Zishuan nodded and said, "Since Uncle Han has agreed, then after 2 days when I am done with the matters at hand, Iron Egg will follow me back to Chang and to study martial arts." Han Lijing solemnly bowed and said gratefully, "Thank you, young master, for promoting this stinky brat. If this brat is disobedient in the future, young master, feel free to scold and discipline him. If he is beaten to death, he deserves it. This old man will not say a word." Li Zishuan smiled and shook his head. He said, "Uncle Han, This time I came to the Han village because there is a very important matter that I need to discuss with you. Han Lijing saw that he was serious and asked in confusion, "Young master, what is it?" Chapter 61. Han Village, Han family's small courtyard. Uncle Han, my father, and I plan to have all the farmers in the village help us raise chickens. We will be responsible for providing the chicken seedlings, and we will also use a portion of the rent as payment for everyone raising the chickens. Li Zishuan revealed the main purpose of his visit to the Han family village this time. Hearing this, Han Lijing asked curiously, "Young master, isn't it just asking everyone to help raise a few chickens? Why do we need to pay them? It's not like it takes much effort." Li Zishuan explained, "Uncle Han, it's not about raising a few chickens. We plan to raise at least 50,000 chickens in the Han village. Of course, we need to pay the farmers a corresponding amount." Ah, so many. Even though Han Lijing was someone who had escaped death on the battlefield, he was still shocked by the huge number of chickens. Han Yushi, who was beside him, also opened her small mouth in shock. Young master, why are you and master raising so many chickens?" Han Lijing really couldn't understand. "We have a use for these chickens next year. Now, I need to trouble Uncle Han to gather all the farmers in the village at noon. I will talk to them about this matter. If they're willing to raise them, I will do a count and immediately send the chicken seedlings over." Li Zishuan replied. Han Lijing swallowed his saliva and nodded. "That's fine. Young master, please sit here for a moment. I will inform the farmers to gather at the threshing field at the village entrance." Li Zishuan cupped his hands and thanked him. "Then I will have to trouble Uncle Han." 2 hours later, at the threshing field of the Han village. "Old Hu, why did Lijing call everyone here?" Old Hu stared and said, "How would I know? But I heard that young master came to the village today." "Hey, could it be that young master is here to give us business again? Last time, the people in our village picked fruits and earned quite a bit of money, right? This year, we might even be able to make new clothes for the children. Young master is really a good person. Of course, if anyone dares to say anything bad about young master, I, Lu Yue, will be the first to beat them to death." A chubby village woman beside them interrupted. "Old Hu, I'm afraid you won't beat them to death. You will crush them to death, right?" "Ha!" Another burst of laughter came from the side. Stop quarreling. Young master is here." When Li Zishuan arrived at the threshing field, he saw that there were already 200 to 300 villagers gathered here. At this time, Han Lijing came up to him and said, "Young master, all the villagers have gathered here. Including the women, there are a total of 348 people and 208 households. Young master, you can go up and talk to them now." Li Zishuan nodded. "Thank you, Uncle Han." Then he walked to the front of the crowd. Looking at these simple and adorable villagers, he thought about the locusts that were coming next year. If he did not do anything, most of these people would probably starve to death. At this moment, he felt a sense of urgency. As soon as he stood in front of the crowd, the noisy crowd immediately quieted down and waited for Li Zishuan to speak. "Uncles and aunties, I've come to the Han family manor today mainly to discuss a business deal with all of you. If you're willing, we can cooperate. If you're not, I won't force you either. There's no need to worry." Li Zishuan loudly stated the purpose of his visit. His internal energy was strong, and everyone in the field could hear his voice clearly. "Young master, if you have anything to say, just tell us. No matter what business it is, as long as I, Old Hu, can do it, I'll be the first to support it." "Yes, young master. If we can help, we'll definitely help. Young master, just tell us what it is." "Yes, we'll definitely help." Li Zishuan gestured with his hand, and the crowd immediately quieted down. "Then I'll say it. Just do what you can. This business deal is very simple. I want all of you to help my family raise chickens. My family will provide the chickens for free, and according to the number of chickens raised by each household, a portion of the rent will be reduced every year. For example, if a household raises 100 chickens, then this household's rent will be reduced by 10% this year. If they raise 200 chickens, then the rent will be reduced by 20%, and so on. Does everyone understand?" As soon as Li Zishuan finished speaking, The crowd below burst into an uproar. There's actually such a good deal? Raise 100 chickens, and the rent will be reduced by 10%. Yes. Aren't these conditions too generous? Why does young master want to raise so many chickens? Is what young master said true? Did I hear wrongly? Lisa Schwan waited for them to talk privately for a while before asking them to quiet down. What's everyone's decision? If you're not willing to cooperate, you can leave now and do your own things. I won't hold any grudges. No one was willing to leave. The bearded man couldn't help but shout again. Young master, only a fool wouldn't agree to such generous conditions. My old family is willing to help young master raise 500 chickens. Old Hu's words were shocking. He wanted to raise 500 chickens. According to his calculations, he wouldn't have to pay rent for a year. Young master, my family is willing to raise 800 chickens. With someone taking the lead, the people behind immediately began to fight with each other, fearing that they wouldn't be able to raise enough chickens. Lisa Schwan coughed heavily, interrupting the noisy crowd, and said loudly, each family can raise a maximum of 400 chickens, and you must ensure that the chickens have at least an 80% survival rate. Please consider the number of chickens in your family and do what you can. Don't simply give a number. If you thought it through, go to Han Lijing's place to register and sign the agreement. After a few days, I will send the chickens over. Only then did the crowd quiet down, and each of them was thinking about how many chickens they could raise. Young master, these chickens, whose eggs do they belong to? The village woman who called herself Lu Yu asked embarrassedly. You woman, young master has already given us so many benefits. Why are you still so greedy? Of course, these eggs belong to young master's family. The bearded man immediately jumped over and scolded angrily. Husband, I'm just asking. I didn't say that I'm greedy for these eggs. Lu Yu retorted without any confidence. Lisa Schwan coughed heavily to stop the couple's quarrel and said loudly, the chickens that each family raises and the eggs that they lay belong to each family. I know that everyone doesn't have much food to feed the chickens, but I can pay for a chicken farm in the back of the mountain. Everyone can raise the chickens in the back of the mountain and let them find their own food. You can leave a few children to take care of them. In addition, in order to prevent the chicken plague, I will pay to help you build a ventilated chicken house, but you must clean the chicken house every day. I will also provide you with quicklime, and you can sprinkle it around the chicken house. When everyone heard this, they were so excited that their faces turned red. This benefit was too good. They didn't have to do anything at all. At most, they would just have to clean the chicken house. Farmers were never afraid of work. Calculating this, throughout the year, not only would they be able to reduce the rent, but the eggs that the chickens laid could also be sold. This year's income was estimated to be comparable to that of farming. Thank you, young master, for your kindness. We will definitely raise the chickens well for young master. Not to mention an 80% survival rate, I can guarantee that 90% of the chickens will survive. Young master, my family has 5 children. Raising 400 chickens is no problem at all. Young master, my family also has 4 children. We can also raise 400 chickens. Seeing that everyone was so enthusiastic, Lisa Schwan was also very gratified. His words were not in vain, so he shouted, after everyone has thought about it, go to Han Lijing to report the number and press your fingerprint. In the next few days, I will send the chicken seedlings over one after another. According to the number that each of you reported, the chicken seedlings will be distributed. I hope that everyone will raise these chickens well. Han Lijing had already set up a table at the side. Han Yushi sat on the stool and held a brush, waiting for everyone to report the number. As soon as everyone heard Lisa Schwan's words, they immediately scrambled to get to the table. Chapter 62. In the afternoon, in the small courtyard of the Han village. After Lisa Schwan explained the matter of raising chickens to the villagers, he and Iron Egg returned to the small courtyard of the Han village to rest. There were no extra stools there, and standing was tiring. Lisa Schwan's laziness had not been cured. Iron Egg, did you go to school before? Since he had nothing to do, he wanted to chat with his new disciple. Master, Iron Egg went to school in the village last year, but the village ran out of money to pay for the school, so the teacher ran away. Iron Egg no longer called Lisa Schwan young master, but master. It was also the first time that Lisa Schwan heard someone call him master, and he felt a little proud. He then asked happily, Iron Egg, how many words did you learn after going to school for a year? Iron Egg scratched his head and said embarrassedly, Master, Iron Egg knows about 100 words. He was a famous brat in school, and his grades were not good. So little, not as good as Lana. Although Lana was young, her mother had taught her how to read and write when she was very young. Although Lana's writing skills were immature, it was almost the same as Lisa Schwan's calligraphy. Lisa Schwan patted Iron Egg's shoulder and said earnestly, Iron Egg, you can't be illiterate. In the future, you have to learn from Lon every day. Even Lon knows more words than you. As a man, how can you be worse than a girl? Yes, master, Iron Egg answered with a bitter face. Young master, we're back. Han Yushi's clear voice came from the door, followed by Han Lijing. Lisa Schwan quickly got up and greeted them with a smile. Uncle Han, Yushi, thank you for your hard work. Han Lijing waved his hand and said with a smile, Young master, what are you talking about? With this livelihood, I'm afraid our Han Manor will become the richest manor in the vicinity of Chang'an. No matter how hard it is, I, Old Han, am willing to do it. Ha! Yes, Uncle Han, you have to believe me. As long as the farmers work hard, their days will only get better and better. All right, have you calculated the number of chickens? How many chickens did the farmers register? Han Lijing hurriedly handed the booklet in his hand to Lisa Schwan and said, Young master, the amount reported by each household in the Han village is recorded here. Yushi and I haven't had the time to calculate it yet. The main thing was that he had never been to school, so how could he know how to count? Lisa Schwan flipped open the booklet and glanced at it. He found that almost every household had signed up for 400. Only about 20 households had signed up for 300 or 200. Han Lijing had also signed up for 400. After Lisa Schwan practiced the Taishan Sutra, his brain's reaction was unusually fast. After he glanced at the booklet, he immediately calculated the total number in his mind. Closing the booklet, Lisa Schwan smiled and said, There's no need to trouble Uncle Han to calculate. I've calculated that the farmers have signed up for 78,600 chickens. I'll round it up. When the time comes, I'll purchase 80,000 chickens. Uncle Han, you can distribute the excess evenly to each household. Take it as a token of my appreciation to the farmers. The additional portion will not be included in the amount they have to pay me next year. Lisa Schwan waved his hand and sent out an additional 1,400 chickens. Han Lijing saw that the young master calculated so quickly and secretly thought that the young master was really knowledgeable. Iron Egg was the young master's disciple. Even if he didn't learn martial arts, if he could learn 30% of a young master's knowledge, it would be enough to last him for a lifetime. When he heard that the young master wanted to send out an additional 1,000 chickens, Han Lijing was shocked. He hurriedly said, Young master, you can't do that. This young master's conditions are already generous enough. If you do that, won't you lose money? Lisa Schwan smiled and said, Uncle Han, this isn't worth much. If the farmers can live a better life, I'll be happy. If my mother knew, she would be happier than I am. Oh, right, Uncle Han. I also want you to help me find a type of person. Young master, what kind of person are you looking for? Han Lijing asked curiously. That's right. Uncle Han, do you know a type of person who can make a flock of chickens very obedient? For example, if you tell the flock to head east, the flock will head east. Is there such a person? Lisa Schwan wasn't confident that he could find such a person. If he really couldn't find such a person, then when the locust exterminating plan was implemented next year, he would have to hire a lot of people to chase the chickens down to the ground and eat the locusts. The efficiency would be very low. In his previous life, he had seen a lot of experts on the internet who could train chickens like they were their own arms. He just didn't know if there was such a person in the Tang Dynasty. Han Lijing, who was listening at the side, was stunned. He asked in bewilderment, Young master, is there such a person in the world? It seems like I'm thinking too much. Lisa Schwan was slightly disappointed. Master, I know who can make chickens obedient. Iron Egg, who was at the side, jumped up and shouted excitedly. Oh, Iron Egg, you really know? Lisa Schwan asked in surprise. Stinky brat, don't talk nonsense. How come I don't know that there is such a person in the farmstead? Han Lijing frowned and scolded. Father, there really is such a person. Uncle Hu's son, can make a flock of chickens obedient. Moreover, his sister also has this ability. Iron Egg hurriedly explained. Oh, so that child really knows how to do this? How come I don't know? Han Lijing asked in puzzlement. Lisa Schwan ignored the puzzled Han Lijing and pulled Iron Egg over. He hurriedly asked, Iron Egg, quickly tell Master what is going on. Yes, Master. It's just that uncle who has a son. Since he was young, he didn't like to play with the children in our farmstead. He usually stays alone in the small courtyard at home and keeps his chickens company. We all call him Silly Who in private. There was once when I went to Uncle Hu's house to help my father return something. I saw him and his sister playing with the chickens in the courtyard. I heard him squawk and the chickens ran to the east. His sister squawked and the chickens ran back. Moreover, the chickens weren't afraid of them at all. At that time, I thought it was strange. But after hearing what Master said, I feel that the two of them are quite suitable for Master's conditions. Oh, there's such a thing. That's great. Iron Egg, what are the names of these two children? I have to meet them. Lisa Schwan originally didn't have much hope. He didn't expect that there would be a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. He couldn't help but be excited. Master, that Silly whose real name is Hu Guoji. His sister is Hu Guoji. If Master wants to meet them, I can bring Master there. Iron Egg replied. Lisa Schwan, who was about to follow Iron Egg to meet the two children, suddenly staggered and almost lost his balance when he heard these two strange names. Why are their names so strange? Lisa Schwan wondered. Han Yushi, who was at the side, explained, Young Master, I know this. It is said that when Aunt Lu was pregnant, Uncle Hu wanted a boy. He went to the Taoist temple in Chang and West City to find a fortune teller. The Taoist priest said that Aunt Lu was definitely pregnant with a boy. Uncle Hu was overjoyed and went home to tell Aunt Lu. In the end, after Aunt Lu gave birth, she found out that it was a girl. Uncle Hu conveniently named her Hu Guoji. A year later, Aunt Lu was pregnant again. Uncle Hu went to another Taoist temple to have his fortune told. The Taoist priest there said that Aunt Lu was definitely pregnant with a boy this time. Later, Aunt Lu gave birth to a boy. Uncle Hu named the boy Hu Guoji. Lisa Schwan was thunderstruck when he heard this. He was speechless for a long time. He silently mourned for these two unlucky children to have such an unreliable father. The world was really big. There were all kinds of strange things. There were many strange things in modern society. He didn't expect to encounter such a strange thing in the Tang Dynasty. Uncle Han, then I'll have to trouble you to bring me to meet the two children. I'm quite interested in their abilities. Han Lijing nodded and said, Okay, then you and Iron Egg can stay at home and cook. Young Master must be hungry after being busy for so long at noon. We'll be back soon. Han Yushi nodded and agreed. Okay, Father. Yushi will go and cook now. Chapter 63. On the way to Lisa Schwan's house, Han Lijing introduced his family situation to Lisa Schwan. The uncle who that Iron Egg mentioned was called Hu Hanyan. The people in the village called him Old Hu. He used to be a blacksmith and a government soldier. He only moved to the Han village 10 years ago. Hu Hanyan's wife was Lu Yu-yi, whom he met after he moved to the Han village. She was considered a flower in the village when she was young, but her personality was very shrewish. Young Master, actually, this Old Hu is also a pitiful person. Han Lijing suddenly sighed heavily. Lisa Schwan was puzzled. Oh, Uncle Han, how is he pitiful? Sigh, back then, Old Hu also fled from the north and came to our Han village. He was a forthright and righteous person. He could talk to anyone. It didn't take long for him to take root in the village. Later, he finally married Lu Yu. Everyone thought that his good days were coming. Who knew that Lu Yu-yi's first child was actually born? More than a month after it was born, everyone found out that the girl was born blind. Old Hu's family didn't have much money to begin with. In order to raise money, he did everything he could. Then he brought his daughter to basically all the big and small medical centers in Chang, but no one could cure that child's eyes. Old Hu's child was a blind girl? Lisa Xuan was shocked. He had met Hu Hanyan before. This man gave him the impression that he had a carefree personality. He didn't expect him to bear such a painful misfortune. Sigh, young master, this isn't the worst. Later on, Lu Yu gave birth to his son, Hu Guoji. Although the child was born healthy, the couple slowly realized that the child's reaction was very slow, and his speech was also very slow. The doctors all said that the child was a bit stupid. Someone in the village advised Old Hu to send the foolish child to the temple. Old Hu refused and said that even if his son was a fool, he would raise him for the rest of his life. Han Lijing finished and shook his head. His face was full of worry. Lisa Xuan was silent after hearing this. In this era, the medical conditions were definitely not as good as in the future. Moreover, the people in this era were even poorer. There were always misfortunes. Alas, even though the world is at peace, the common people are still suffering. The two of them walked for a while before Han Lijing stopped. He pointed at a dilapidated farmhouse in front of them and said, "Young master, we've arrived. That's Old Hu's house." Lisa Xuan looked around and realized that this courtyard was even more dilapidated than Han Lijing's house. The courtyard was surrounded by a low wall made of reeds and bamboo sticks, and there were a few dilapidated huts inside. It could be seen that this family lived in poverty. Han Lijing came to the front of the courtyard and shouted inside. Old Hu quickly opened the door. "Young master is here." Lisa Xuan saw Han Li shouting at the door from behind. He suddenly felt like laughing because this scene was very similar to a joke from his previous life. Old friend quickly opened the door. "I'm checking your water meter." Fortunately, his tolerance was good. Otherwise, he would have laughed out loud. At this moment, a woman's voice came from the courtyard. "He's here. Is Han Lijing here?" Lisa Xuan recognized the voice. It was Lu Yu's voice. He heard it during the mobilization meeting in the afternoon. When the courtyard door opened, it was indeed the plump Lu Yu. Just now, he heard from Han Lijing that she was a flower in the village when she was young. Lisa Xuan took a closer look and found that her facial features were still considered normal. It was just that the years had left too many traces on her face. It seemed that she had suffered a lot in these years. But why was her figure so fat? Could it be that women get fat easily when they reach middle age? "Lijing, you're here?" "Io, isn't this young master?" "Young master is also here. Quickly come in and have a seat." She quickly came over to pull Lisa Xuan. Lisa Xuan quickly moved away and cupped his hands. "Hello, Aunt Lu. We're here to see the Hu siblings. Are they at home?" Lu Yu was puzzled. "Young master, why are you looking for these two children?" "I'm afraid that these two children are insensible and impolite. They'll offend young master." Lisa Xuan waved his hand and smiled. "Aunt Lu, it's okay. Why would I be calculative with two children? Do I look like such a petty person? I heard from Uncle Han about these two children today. Coincidentally, I know a famous doctor. I'm here to see these two children. I'll ask that doctor later to see if there's a cure." Lu Yu heard this, and a huge surprise rushed to her head. Her breathing quickened, and her eyes widened as she stared at Lisa Xuan. She said in disbelief, Young master, you're saying that our family can still be saved?" "Aunt Lu, I didn't say that it can definitely be saved. As for the specific situation, I'll have to see them to know." Okay. I'll bring young master to see them now." "Young master, quickly follow me." Lu Yu couldn't wait to bring Lisa Xuan in. "Cough, Yui, why isn't Old Hu at home?" Han Lijing asked at this time. Lu Yu then remembered that Han Lijing was next to her. She quickly turned around and answered, "Our master went to the fields. It seems that the rented cattle from the farmstead can be used by our family today. Our master went to the fields and advanced to guard." Han Lijing suddenly understood and nodded. The few of them entered the courtyard. Lisa Xuan saw that there was a flock of chickens in the courtyard. There were about 10 of them. Beside the flock of chickens stood two children. The slightly older girl was about 7 or 8 years old. She was so skinny that Lisa Schwann even suspected that this girl didn't weigh more than 40 pounds. The girl's facial features could be considered delicate and pretty. However, her pair of lifeless eyes somewhat destroyed her beauty. The little boy was slightly chubby and was about 6 or 7 years old. He was squatting on the ground with his hands supporting his chin. He was muttering something to the flock of chickens. No one knew what he was saying. After he finished speaking, he was still laughing. Lu Yu saw that her son was making a fool of himself in front of the young master. She angrily shouted, "Sure enough, quickly come over and greet the young master." "You actually came over too." When the little boy heard the shout, he stood up and turned his head. He smiled at Lu Yu and said, "Mother." After he finished speaking, he didn't immediately run over. Instead, he turned around and pulled the bamboo stick in the girl's hand. He brought the girl along with him. Lisa Schwann looked at his actions and raised his eyebrows thoughtfully. "Sure enough, quickly greet the young master." Seeing her son and daughter walk over, Lu Yu said to them, who actually bowed and politely said, "Greetings, young master." Although she couldn't see, the direction in which she bowed was actually facing Lisa Schwann. Lisa Schwann was also somewhat surprised. However, what made him even more surprised was this girl's temperament. It was a kind of calm and indifferent, like an ancient well without any ripples. Standing beside her was like standing on the surface of a calm lake. This girl, at such a young age, her temperament was probably even more indifferent than those monks. At this time, Hu Shi chuckled and scratched the back of his head. He laughed foolishly and said, "Ha, sure greets young master." This child's pronunciation was really very slow. Moreover, it seemed that this child was really struggling to speak. Also, when Hu Shi said this sentence, coupled with his name, Lisa Schwann felt that it was a little strange no matter how he heard it. Chapter 64. Looking at the two children in front of him, Lisa Schwann felt a little uncomfortable. Other children at this age were playing with their friends outside, but these two children could only squat at home and play with a flock of chickens. How sad. "Aunt Lu, you go do your things first. I want to talk to these two children alone for a while." "Ah, then young master, if you need anything, call me." Lu Yu responded and brought Han Lijing to sit in the front hall. "Is your name Guiji?" Lisa Schwann bent down and tried to smile kindly. Perhaps because he felt Lisa Schwann's goodwill, Hu Schwann said with a silly smile, "Young master, Yoro my name. Why are you still asking for me?" It seemed that this child wasn't stupid. Previously, when Lisa Schwann saw that he didn't forget to pull his sister along when he came over, Lisa Schwann felt that this child wasn't as stupid as Han Lijing and the others said. Now that he saw Hu Guiyuan, although he spoke slowly, his thoughts were very clear and organized. Lisa Schwann was even more certain of his judgment. "Sure enough, I heard that you can make chickens very obedient. Can you show it to your brother?" "Yes." Hearing Lisa Schwann mention chickens, Hu Guoji suddenly became excited and quickly pulled his sister to the flock of chickens in the east corner of the yard. Lisa Schwann crossed his arms with great interest as he stood to the side, watching the two siblings play out what kind of tricks they would play. He saw Hu Guoji raise two chubby little hands and let out a burst of hurried goo-goo-goo sounds. The flock of chickens seemed to have heard the order and excitedly surrounded him. Goo-goo-goo sound around him. Sister, it's your turn." Hu Guoji shouted at Hu Guoji. She took out a willow leaf from her waist, put it to her mouth, and blew an incomplete tune. The flock of chickens that were surrounding her turned around and ran to her side. Lisa Schwann was dumbfounded as he watched from the side. In his previous life, his family had also raised chickens, but when his mother usually called the chickens to feed them, those chickens would only run over and watch nearby. They would only dare to come over to eat when his mother was far away. It wasn't like this. When the chickens heard the voices of the two siblings, they were not afraid of them at all. They surrounded them as if they had taken drugs. It was really amazing. What Lisa Schwann didn't expect was that there would be something even more extreme. Sure enough, Hu seemed to be a little high at this time. He ran to his sister's side and stood in front of the flock of chickens. Then he turned his head to Lisa Schwan and smiled proudly, saying, "Hey, hey, young master, look, quickly." Hu Guoji raised his hands, half squatted, and jumped up and down. His mouth made a very rhythmic G sound. The flock of chickens in front of him, at this moment, seemed to have heard his call and lined up neatly in front of him. What was even more amazing was that the flock of chickens actually followed Hu Guoji's rhythm and began to jump. They also tilted their necks and turned their heads neatly. Perhaps Hu felt that it was boring for his brother to play alone. So he put the willow leaf next to his mouth and played a happy and melodious tune with Hu Guoji's rhythm. In the small courtyard, a young girl was standing under the sun and playing a tune. A young boy was happily walking while making strange sounds. The flock of chickens on the ground twisted their bodies to the rhythm. This scene was so beautiful that it almost blinded Lisa Schwan's titanium alloy eyes. At this moment, Lisa Schwan's heart gave birth to a strange feeling. The scene in front of him was as if a young girl was playing music, and then a young boy was below the stage, leading a flock of chickens to do a square dance. TSK. Lisa Schwan expressed that this was really something that he had seen long ago. Hey, young master, Guoji, how is your acting? The two children played for a while, and Hu Guoji felt tired first, so he stopped and ran to Lisa Schwan's side, somewhat proudly asking for praise. Usually, only his sister was willing to play with him. When other children saw him and his sister playing with a flock of chickens, they all treated them as fools and distanced themselves from them. This time, it was rare to have such an amiable young master who specially wanted to see him and the flock of chickens perform. Hu Guoji was very happy and had long regarded Lisa Schwan as his best friend. Lisa Schwan could see that Hu Guoji urgently needed to be acknowledged and praised by others. He also understood that this child's heart was lonely and lacked recognition. Lisa Schwan smiled, rubbed Hu Guoji's head, and said, "Sure enough, your performance was very good. You really are the smartest child I've ever seen." Hu Guoji, who was on the side, heard this and breathed a sigh of relief. She was afraid that this young master would say something to hurt her brother like other people and make him sad. Her brother's heart had been hurt enough. At this time, when she heard Lisa Schwan praise her brother, Hu Guoji felt a trace of gratitude towards Lisa Schwan from the bottom of her heart. When Hu Guoji heard Lisa Schwan's words, he jumped 3 feet high and excitedly rushed to the front hall. As he ran, he cheered, "Mother, young master, just said, I'm not a fool. He said, I'm the smartest child in the village." At this moment, he was so excited that he spoke faster than before. This was the first praise he received from an outsider since he came to this world. Finally, there was someone who didn't treat him as a fool. Of course, Hu Guoji's heart was excited. Although he was young, he had been treated as a fool by the children in the village since he was young. His self-esteem had been trampled over and over again, so of course, he was more mature than his peers. He was so eager to be recognized, and today, there was finally someone who recognized him. Hu Guoji felt that he had never been as happy as today. In his heart, he thought, this young master who came from nowhere is really a good person. At this time, Hu Guoji used the bamboo stick to explore the road and came to Lisa Schwan's side. She smiled and said, "Thank you, young master, for saying so. I haven't seen my brother so happy in a long time." Although her heart was as calm as still water, it was only for outsiders. For this brother of hers, she naturally cared and loved him very much. Lisa Schwan habitually shook his head. Suddenly, he realized that this girl seemed to be unable to see, so he quickly said awkwardly, what I said just now was actually the truth. I didn't deliberately say that to make you happy." Hu Guoji said in disbelief, "Really? Of course it's true. In the eyes of others, your ability to make chickens obedient may be worthless, but in my eyes, your ability is priceless." Lisa Schwan said with certainty, "Well, although I can't see young master's expression, I can feel young master's sincerity. Young master is speaking the truth. Thank you, young master." Hu Guoji's face finally broke into a smile and said happily, Chapter 65. Actually, how did you and your brother manage to make the chickens listen to you? Lisa Schwan saw that this little girl was not as distant to him as before, so he wanted to chat with her. Who actually replied softly, "Young master, isn't this normal? You actually believe that anyone who spends all their time with these chickens will eventually have the ability that my brother and I have. Moreover, my brother and I treat these chickens as our good friends, so naturally, they will listen to us." Lisa Schwan was silent. This sentence sounded simple, but contained endless loneliness and sorrow that ordinary people could not imagine. If it were not for their rough childhood, how could they spend all their time at home with these chickens? Actually, I just said that your and your brother's ability is valuable in my eyes. Do you know why? Lisa Schwan wanted to change their fate, but this also required them to work hard. He could not cultivate their habit of reaping without sowing. Who actually shook her head and said, "Although I can feel that young master is telling the truth, I can't think of what my brother and I can do for young master with this ability. Actually, you should have heard from your mother that I want to raise a large number of chickens in the Han family manner, right?" Who actually nodded. Lisa Schwan continued, "I need you and your brother to teach your ability to a group of people. Next year, I need you to lead these people to help me control the flock of chickens in the manor. When I tell you to drive the flock of chickens, you just have to do it." Who actually was puzzled and asked, "Young master, what do you need these chickens to do?" Lisa Schwan smiled and said, "You will naturally know next year. I can't tell you now. I really hope that you can help me. This is not a deal. If you are willing, you could treat me as a friend. As your friend, I will also find a way to find a famous doctor to treat your illness." Who actually was surprised when she heard this, but then she shook her head and said, "Young master, as long as you can find someone to treat my eyes, I am extremely grateful. When I was young, my father spent a lot of money to treat my eyes. I don't want to trouble others anymore. Moreover, I am already used to the darkness." As for the matter that young master mentioned, he was actually very willing to help. This girl was so young, but she was so sensible. Lisa Schwan was still lamenting how unfortunate old Hu was, but now it seemed that he was lucky to have such a sensible daughter. Lisa Schwan smiled and said, "Since we are friends, we don't need to care about these things. I will keep your eye disease in mind. If it can be cured, I will definitely find a way to cure it for you. In fact, there is more than darkness in this world. When you can see it one day, you will be fascinated by this colorful world." Who actually looked forward to the world described by Lisa Schwan. He said, "In that case, thank you, young master." "Aunt Lou, I've seen these two children. I'll talk to the famous doctor later and see if he can treat them. I also want these two children to help me. I hope Aunt Lou can agree." Lisa Schwan entered the house and said to Lu Yue. Lu Yue smiled happily and said, "Young master, you have helped our family so much. We don't know how to thank you. Young master, if you need anything, please tell us." Lisa Schwan told Lu Yu the plan that he had just told Who actually. Han Lijing and Lu Yu were both shocked. They really didn't know why Lisa Schwan did this. Lu Yu couldn't help but ask, "Young master, what is the use of letting people learn this?" Lisa Schwan smiled and said, "It is very useful. Aunt Lu, you will know next year. Aunt Lu, let these two children help me teach people. I can spend 20 strings of coins to hire them. The tens of thousands of chickens that our Han family village will raise in the future will be called the Sky Chicken Brigade. These two children will be the captains of the Sky Chicken Brigade." In June next year, the sky would be filled with locusts pouring down. There would be a Sky Chicken Brigade on the ground, like divine soldiers descending from the sky. This would be a war without gunpowder. It would be a battle between man and heaven, a battle between chickens and locusts. Lu Yu didn't care about the Sky Chicken Brigade. She just heard that the young master was going to give her 20 strings of coins. This was 20 strings of coins. Lu Yu had never seen so much money. She really didn't expect that her stupid son and blind daughter could bring so much profit to the family. At this moment, her eyes were shining. Lisa Schwan felt that her eyes were full of small amounts of money. He couldn't help but find it funny. Of course, Lu Yu wouldn't refuse Lisa Schwan like old Hu. An old Hu had been married for so many years and had become more realistic. She hurriedly agreed. Young master, don't worry. I will urge Wang Jinghe to teach this ability to others. Li Zixuan nodded and smiled. Thank you for your cooperation, Aunt Lu. I will ask someone to send the money over another day. He then turned to Han Lijing and said, Uncle Han, let's go to the field to find Uncle Hu. We have to tell him about this. On the way to the field, Han Lijing couldn't help but ask, Young master, what do you want Wang Jinghe and Wang Jinghe to teach people to train chickens for? Li Zixuan smiled. Uncle Han, it's not convenient for me to talk about this now, but please keep this in mind. When you go back later, inform the people in the village. In the Han family village, whether it's adults or children, the first 100 people who learn the ability of Hu Zhenghe and Wang Jinghe to train chickens will receive a reward of 500 coins. Uncle Han, you will work hard and be in charge of the assessment. Help me record these people's names in the book and then hand it to me. Han Lijing was dumbfounded. He really wanted to say, Young master, is it really good to spend money like this? In his eyes, Li Zixuan's actions were really nonsense. On the ridge of the field outside the village, the two of them found old Hu. Seeing him sitting on the ground, bored to death as if he was waiting for something, the two of them walked over. Old Hu, young master and I are here to see you. Han Lijing called out. Io Lijing, young master, why are you here? Old Hu stood up in surprise. Uncle Hu, I came to talk to you about Wang Jinghe and Wang Jinghe. Li Zixuan replied. Young master, what's there to talk about those two children? Old Hu stared at him in confusion. Li Zixuan told Old Hu about his thoughts just now. Old Hu immediately widened his eyes and said in disbelief, Young master, don't make fun of me. Old Hu, you only want my two children to teach people how to train chickens, and young master will find a famous doctor to treat the two children? Li Zixuan nodded and smiled. Uncle Hu, what I said is true. Why would I make fun of you? Hearing the affirmative answer, Old Hu suddenly became so emotional that his eyes turned red. His lips trembled. Young master, as long as you can get people to treat my two children, my life will be yours from now on. Even if young master wants me to die, I am willing. Li Zixuan also admired this honest and affectionate man in front of him. In his previous life, he had seen many parents who abandoned their children after giving birth to deformed or disabled children. This Old Hu did not care about any difficulties and did not abandon his children. This was a man worthy of respect and also a father worthy of respect. Li Zixuan hurriedly said, Uncle Hu, what are you talking about? Why would I want your life? As expected, as long as you can help me teach a group of people, that would be the best reward for me. Chapter 66. Outside the Han village, in the fields, Old Hu kept thanking the young master, but he was not good with words. In the end, he only said the same few sentences. Li Zixuan felt very awkward listening to him. Seeing this, Han Lijing interrupted him and said, Old Hu, you've been waiting here for so long. You still haven't seen the cattle? Old Hu heard this and shook his head dejectedly. He pointed at a middle-aged man who was plowing not far away and said, Lijing, look, Old Wang's family hasn't used up all the cattle. There's not much rain this year, so the fields are hard to plow. I'm so worried. Uncle Han, can't we borrow more cattle from the county? Li Zixuan heard Old Hu's complaints and was a little confused, so he asked. Han Lijing shook his head and said, Young master, you don't know, but we have a lot of people in the village. The county has already given us more cattle than the other villages. At this time, it's spring plowing season everywhere. The county definitely doesn't have any extra cattle to give us. Old Hu sighed heavily and said, Lijing, with the current speed of plowing, I'm afraid that many of the villagers will miss the spring plowing season. What should we do? Li Zixuan was shocked when he heard this. In his previous life, he was also a child from the countryside. He knew how serious the consequences of missing the spring plowing season were. At that time, many families would starve. If everyone missed the spring plowing season, it would definitely affect their enthusiasm for raising chickens. This problem must be solved. He pondered for a while, then looked at Old Hu and asked, Uncle Hu, how much land can a cow plow in a day? Old Who scratched his head and thought for a while before saying, "Young master, the fields are very hard to plow this year. A cow can at most plow 4 of land a day. If we plow more, we're afraid that the cows will be tired out. If this was in the previous years, they could plow 6 to 7 of land a day. It's all because there's not enough rain this year. For of land a day, this speed was too slow." Li Zishuan frowned and looked at Han Lijing and asked, "Uncle Han, how many cattle do we have in the village?" "Young master, this year, the farmstead has rented 20 cows, which is already much more than the other farmsteads." Li Zishuan silently calculated in his heart. At this rate, wouldn't it take more than a month to finish plowing? That wouldn't do. It was not that he had not thought of spending money to buy cattle from other places, but in this era, cattle had always been scarce. If he bought cattle from other places, what would happen to the people there? If only he was like the other transmigrated protagonists and had a system with him, he could directly exchange for a farming tractor and guarantee that he could plow dozens of acres of land in a day. Sigh, since we don't have a tractor and we can't increase the number of cattle, it seems like we have to think of other ways to increase the efficiency of farming. This problem was easy to solve. He had countless advanced mechanical models in his mind, and he would definitely be able to find a better plow. "Uncle Han, I'll go and see what kind of plows the farmers are using." Li Zishuan instructed and walked towards Old Wang, whom Old Who had pointed out. Han Lijing and Old Who quickly followed. Li Zishuan came to the embankment beside Old Wang, and his eyes began to focus on the plow that Old Wang was using. Old Wang was concentrating on plowing and did not notice that someone was looking at him. In his previous life, Li Zishuan was very short-sighted. In this life, he did not know if it was because of his divine ability, but his eyesight was very good, and he could clearly see the structure of the plow from afar. He discovered that the structure of the plow was very strange. The shaft of the plow was actually straight, and it was actually about 9 feet long. With such a long shaft, it would probably be very difficult to turn around. Li Zishuan quickly constructed a 3-dimensional structure of the plow in his mind, and based on his knowledge of engineering mechanics, he analyzed the various parts of the plow. He discovered that the plow required a large amount of pulling force to plow the land, and its structure was clearly unreasonable. Li Zishuan furrowed his brows. He was thinking about which better plow should be used to replace the current one. Various plows from different eras flashed through his mind, and suddenly, he stopped at a plow that was not very different from the current one. "I'll choose you. This should be called a curved plow, and it should not have appeared yet." The structure of this curved shaft plow should have been modified from the structure of the plow in front of us. Even though the modification is not very big, every modification is very crucial. Compared to the plow that Lao Wang is using, this curved shaft plow obviously saves more effort. It is very easy to see this by drawing an analysis of the force exerted. At this time, Li Zishuan not only had a 3-dimensional model of the curved plow in his mind, but he also had a force analysis diagram. It was obvious that the curved plow was more labor-saving, and it was not just a little. The most important thing was that the plow was not difficult to manufacture, and it was easy to mass-produce. When he returned, he could immediately find a craftsman to start manufacturing. This way, he could ensure that the Han family village would not miss out on the spring plowing. In fact, the Tang Dynasty was currently using the long straight plow that was passed down from the Han Dynasty. The curved plow that Li Zishuan imagined in his mind only appeared in the Jiangdong region in the later part of the Tang Dynasty, and thus it was also called the Jiangdong plow. Compared to the long straight plow, the curved plow was more flexible and labor-saving. In the case where the soil was moist, even a strong young man would be able to pull it. "Uncle Han, you guys plow like this for now. I will think of a way for you guys in the next 2 days. I will definitely not let the villagers miss out on the spring plowing." Li Zishuan had a solution in his mind, so he turned around and said to Han Lijing. When Han Lijing and Old Who heard this, they were pleasantly surprised. The land was the life of the villagers. If they missed out on the spring plowing, the harvest would be greatly reduced, and it would not be rare for people to starve to death. They did not expect that the young master would actually help them think of a way. This was really too surprising. Thank you, young master. All of the villagers in the Han family village will remember young master's kindness for the rest of their lives. But what method does young master plan to use? Are you going to Chong and to buy more cattle? Han Lijing solemnly bowed to express his thanks, but he was also very curious about what method Li Zishuan would use to help them. If he were to buy cattle for their village, then the price he would have to pay would be too expensive. Li Zishuan shook his head and said with a smile, "Of course I'm not going to buy cattle. If I were to buy cattle, what would the villagers in other places use? Uncle Han, in 2 days, I will bring you a more labor-saving plow. At that time, your plowing speed will at least increase by 2 times. When Han Lijing and Old Who heard this, they were both shocked. Did such a plow exist in this world? Old Who's eyes widened exaggeratedly, and he cried out in disbelief, Young master, are you speaking the truth? How could there be such a godly plow in this world? Li Zishuan nodded with certainty and said, Uncle Hu, don't worry. Seeing is believing. In 2 days, you will naturally know. Chapter 67. When Li Zishuan returned home, the sky was almost dark. He also brought Iron Egg over. Since he had accepted this disciple, Li Zishuan also planned to teach him well. He would let Iron Egg stay in the west courtyard first. Since the west courtyard was so big, he could just pick a wing room for him. As for Han Yushi, of course, she didn't come with him. Li Zishuan planned to let her help with the wine mixing after he was done with his work. At that time, the first batch of fruit wine from the Han village would be delivered. Recently, he really didn't have time to care about this. There were too many things to do. During dinner, Li Zishuan's parents expressed their goodwill to Iron Egg, a new member of the family. Iron Egg, who was always dignified and strong, was a little embarrassed. During dinner, he was teased by Lan. Lan was also very happy about Iron Egg's arrival. Now, she finally had a playmate of the same age. Although her brother was usually very good to her, he always treated her like a child. Lan always felt a little indignant. Now that Iron Egg was here, she was no longer the youngest. Of course, this was only what she thought. In reality, Iron Egg was a few months older than her. After dinner, Li Zishuan reported the number of chickens raised by the Han village to Old Man Li in the study. Old Man Li was shocked. 80,000? So many? So many chickens. Can the villagers raise them all? Father, don't worry. They can definitely raise them all. I will arrange for the villagers to take care of them. I plan to prepare to buy the chicken seedlings tomorrow and send them to the Han village in batches. Li Jingma nodded and said, Yes, the sooner, the better. Father, do you know the market price of the chicken seedlings in Chang'an? How much is one? Li Jingma thought for a moment and said, About 70 to 80 copper coins for one. But Xianer, if you need so many chicken seedlings, I'm afraid that the peddlers in Chang and will not be able to supply all of them. 70 to 80 copper coins for one? So expensive? Li Zishuan was shocked. In his previous life, a chicken seedling only cost 3 or 4 yuan each, which was about the same as the Tang Dynasty. But after thinking about it carefully, he understood. Modern chicken seedlings were hatched in batches using large automatic incubators, so the cost was naturally lower. Li Zishuan frowned when he heard the second half of his father's words. Dad, do you have any way to provide a large number of chickens in a short period of time? In his impression, as long as it was related to business, his father was omnipotent. Unfortunately, he was disappointed this time. Old Man Li shook his head, showing an expression of helplessness. Xianer, I have indeed done various businesses in my early years. However, I have never set foot in the chicken market. Li Zishuan felt a little helpless. Then let's buy as many as we can and send them over. I believe that those peddlers will definitely think of a way when they see that the market is in short supply. At that time, we just need to give them more money. Li Jingma nodded and said with a smile, Hee, you've seen through it all. Early the next morning, Li Zishuan called Wang Zhong and asked him to bring San Bao, Ah Fu, and a few other servants to the East Market to purchase as many chicken seedlings as possible. The few of them took the money and left with the order. Li Zishuan calculated in his mind. If he calculated according to the price of 80 yuan per chicken, 80,000 chicken seedlings would cost about 6,400 strings of coins. Of course, with Li Zishuan's large purchases, there would be many other peddlers who would raise the price. Li Zishuan felt that if he wanted to buy 80,000 chicken seedlings, he would need to spend about 8,000 to 9,000 strings of coins. This was really expensive. Early in the morning, Iron Egg was also picked up by Li Zishuan to learn how to read from Lan Er. This made Lan Er very happy. She never thought that she would become a teacher one day. Looking at the little girl, with her hands behind her back, pretending to be mature and steady, teaching Iron Egg, Li Zishuan couldn't help but want to laugh. In fact, Li Zishuan's guess was not wrong at all. After Wang Zhong and the others came to the East Market, they were like bandits. When they met peddlers who sold chicken seedlings, they directly bought all of their stock. Merchants had the most sensitive noses. Some of the peddlers soon heard the news from Wang Zhong and the others. So one by one, they heard the news, and one by one, they raised the price of the chicken seedlings and sent people to the surrounding counties to purchase chicken seedlings in large quantities. In half a day, the price of a chicken seedling rose from 75 yuan per chicken to 85 yuan, and finally to 90 yuan per chicken. In a short time, chicken seedlings were expensive in Chang'an. However, Wang Zhong and the others still didn't care about the price. They bought all the chicken seedlings in the West Market and told the peddlers that they still needed a lot of chicken seedlings and asked them to hurry up and stock up. Young master, this old servant bought all the chicken seedlings in the West Market. There were only about 8,000 in total. In the end, some peddlers raised the price, but this old servant still bought all of them. Those peddlers will go to the surrounding counties to stock up today. We can continue to buy tomorrow. In the front yard of the Li residence, Wang Zhong pointed to more than 10 large wooden boxes on the ground and reported to Li Zishuan. Noisy chattering sounds came from the wooden boxes. For a moment, it was very lively. Li Zishuan nodded and agreed. Uncle Wang, you did the right thing. I believe that the price of the chicken seedlings will only be more expensive tomorrow. I'll have to trouble Uncle Wang to bring 7 or 8 servants and hire a few carriages to transport these chicken seedlings to the Han village. Give them to Han Lijing and let him distribute them according to the order that everyone signed up. Also, let Han Lijing immediately gather people in the village. The wage is 30 yuan per person per day. Let them surround the back of the mountain and build a chicken farm. You can continue to purchase the chicken seedlings tomorrow. Wang Zhong nodded and immediately went to gather people. Li Zishuan returned to the west courtyard and went to his study. He spread out a piece of rice paper and closed his eyes. He drew the structure of the curved shaft plow and labeled the dimensions. Li Zishuan also learned about the measurement units of the Tang Dynasty. The labeled dimensions were naturally converted. He also noted the things that needed to be taken note of during the processing. After he finished drawing, Li Zishuan rolled up the drawing and prepared to go to Yin Xiaoning's house to find him. Of course, the sooner the better. The villagers of the Han village were still waiting for his curved shaft plow to plow the land. Under the lead of a servant, Li Zishuan arrived at the Yin residence. After the gatekeeper announced his arrival, Yin Xiaoning came out to greet him with a big smile. "Ha, Xiao Xian, how come you have time to visit me today?" Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Brother Xiaoning is the technical director of our strange interest pavilion and one of the 4 major shareholders. Of course I have to come and greet you." "Ha!" Yin Xiaoning's forehead was full of black lines. He hated the title of technical director, but Li Zishuan wouldn't agree to change it no matter what. Now that he heard these words, he felt a little disgusted. Yin Xiaoning coughed twice and said, "Xiao Xian, come with me to the front hall. Why are you standing at the door?" Li Zishuan nodded and followed Yin Xiaoning into the residence. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.